Chapter 19. His life is coming soon. In Haitian Trading Company, Yang and Alchemist Lu were sitting in the main hall. Alchemist Lu, I'm sorry for offending you. That Long Chen was originally a good-for-nothing. After Lin Feiyu took the meridian solidifying pill, his injuries were instantly healed. There's no problem at all. Haitian Trading Company has neglected our duties today. Yang used tea in place of wine and raised her cup apologetically. Alchemist Lu smiled and drank his cup as well. He waved his hand and said, "It's fine. Young people care too much about fame and fortune. It's understandable for them to have crooked thoughts. Alchemist Lu really has the demeanor of a master. In the future, you will definitely become a Grandmaster Alchemist and serve the Empire." When Alchemist Lu heard the two words Grandmaster, his face immediately turned red. He seemed to enjoy the compliment. However, before he could be modest, an anxious cry came from outside the door. "Alchemist Lu, save me! Alchemist Lu, save me!" Li Su's sharp voice came from outside the door. She, who was originally wearing a qipao, was now in a sorry state. She was carrying Lin Feiyu with her back covered in blood. Clack, clack, clack. Li Su had just entered the main hall. The moment Alchemist Lu saw Lin Feiyu, the teacup in his hand slipped and fell to the ground. It shattered into pieces and tea splashed everywhere. At this moment, for some reason, Long Chen's words during the day echoed in his mind. Could it be that he was right? Alchemist Lu quickly walked over and pressed his right hand on Lin Feiyu's pulse. After a dozen breaths, he said in a low voice, "His heart is about to break. He won't live for long." Alchemist Lu's face turned pale. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. He didn't even know why Lin Feiyu was like this. Li Su and Yang gasped when they heard this. They saw a hint of shock in each other's eyes. Wasn't this situation just like what Long Chen said during the day? Could it be that Long Chen really knew alchemy and knew that Lin Feiyu would end up like this after taking the meridian solidifying pill? Just as the two were stunned, they heard Alchemist Lu shout, "What are you still standing here for? Hurry up and save him." Save him? How? Li Su and Yang were stunned. They thought, if even a spirit-level Alchemist Lu, what can we do? What are you waiting for? Carry him to Long Chen's pill concoction room. If he really saw through this long ago, then he definitely has a way to save Feiyu. Alchemist Lu's expression was as ugly as it could get. So many people had heard Long Chen's words during the day. If Lin Feiyu died now, wouldn't that mean that he, Alchemist Lu, had killed him? Looking for Long Chen? Their brains completely short-circuited. Could it be that Long Chen could really save Lin Feiyu? Even though they recalled what Long Chen had said during the day, the two of them still couldn't help but shake their heads. A person that even a spirit-grade alchemist couldn't save was actually sent to Iron Mountain City's infamous waste for treatment. Wasn't this just a desperate situation? However, when they saw Alchemist Lu's gloomy face, the two of them did not dare to hesitate at all. They immediately carried Lin Feiyu and ran toward the alchemy room. In just a few dozen breaths, everyone had gathered at the entrance of the alchemy room. Qing Xian's delicate face was filled with shock. When she saw Lin Feiyu lying on the ground and almost not breathing, she immediately covered her mouth. She felt that her young master was simply a living immortal. Yang saw that Qing Xian was stunned, so she quickly walked up and urged, "Little girl, quickly go and ask your young master to come out and see if Lin Feiyu can still be saved." Seeing that Lin Feiyu was about to die, Alchemist Lu's right hand flashed, and another pill appeared in his hand. He was about to help Lin Feiyu swallow it. Wait! At this moment, Qing Xian reached out and stopped him. She said, "My young master said that if Lin Feiyu arrives, leave him outside the door. When he finishes concocting the pill, he will naturally come out to save him. During this time, if Alchemist Lu feeds him another pill, then his life and death will have nothing to do with my young master." Alchemist Lu's hand froze in the air. This scene was so familiar, but now it was said by a maid. For some reason, he could not put the pill in his hand down. If he really caused Lin Feiyu to die because of him, then he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. Yanghong could not help but ask Qing Xian, you and your young master are together every day. Have you ever seen him practice alchemy? No. Then have you ever seen him become the disciple of a knowledgeable old man, or become friends with an alchemist? I have also never seen him. Qing Xian's answer made everyone speechless. Yanghong said helplessly, Alchemist Lu, quickly give him the pill. Otherwise, he will die immediately. At this moment, everyone in the surroundings did not even dare to breathe loudly. However, their hearts were in chaos. Did Alchemist Lu really think that the trash from the Long clan could save someone? Li Su, who was at the side, could not help but stare at Qing Xian and the alchemy room behind her. Her voice was cold as she said, during the day, Longchen said that Big Brother Feiyu's life was in danger. However, Alchemist Lu's pill clearly cured Feiyu. Now, Feiyu is suddenly on the verge of death. Perhaps someone did it secretly. If Alchemist Lu made a move and failed to save Feiyu, then he would say that Alchemist Lu did not listen to his words and caused Feiyu's death. Now that he is in seclusion, I'm afraid he wants to wait for Feiyu to die so that there will be no evidence. Li Su's voice was sharp. Standing in front of everyone, her graceful figure moved gracefully. However, every word she said was heart-wrenching. She wanted to consign Longchen to eternal damnation. At this moment, Alchemist Lu's right hand was still frozen in the air. That pill was less than half an inch away from Lin Feiyu's lips. His hand was full of sweat because he knew that this pill would not be able to save Lin Feiyu. At most, it would only delay his death. Ka. At this moment, the door of the alchemist room slowly opened. A cloud of black smoke rushed out. It was like a boiler room. In an instant, everyone's eyes fell on Longchen like spotlights. Longchen walked out of the room with 3 pill bottles in his arms. His face was covered in dirt. Did the furnace explode? When Alchemist Lu saw this scene, his face instantly darkened. A furnace explosion was a problem that would only happen when a first-time alchemist used the furnace fire for the first time. Could it be that the young man in front of him really did use unorthodox methods like the girl said? Did he want to gain fame like this? At this moment, Longchen glanced at him and said with a playful smile, why didn't you give him the second pill? If you give him the second pill, you can watch him die with your own eyes. Alchemist Lu's body trembled. He stared at Lin Feiyu, who was on the verge of death. In the end, he put away the pill in his hand and asked, can you really save him? Chapter 20. Evil Arts Alchemist Lu took a deep breath and took out 2 pill bottles with his right hand. He stared at Longchen and said, there are 10 burning blood pills in here. They belong to the mortal level 7th grade and are worth at least a few 100,000 silvers. If you can save him, it's yours. If you can't, ignoring the threat in Alchemist Lu's words, Longchen didn't hold back either. He directly stepped forward and casually took the 2 single bottles. This action made Alchemist Lu and Yanghong's eyes twitch. This guy really didn't hold back. Then I'll save him. As Longchen's voice fell, his legs kicked out at an extremely fast speed. It brought along a gust of wind that made people's cheeks hurt. Both Alchemist Lu and Yanghong's pupils constricted. They had both stepped into the spirit martial realm and saw Longchen's full force attack at such close range. They immediately felt the strength of this kick. It was at least 1,000 pounds. The strength of a person's leg was stronger than a fist. Even so, it was enough to shock the two. Could it be that the trash in front of them had already reached the 7th or 8th level of the mortal martial realm? But in the next moment, their faces changed. They saw Longchen's kick fiercely land on Lin Feiyu's chest, bang bang bang. Before the two could react, Longchen's right leg was like a gust of wind, kicking out a few more times. Stop! Stop! Alchemist Lu and Yanghong finally reacted. Their spirit martial realm aura suddenly spread out. Shadows of dragons and elephants burst out from their bodies. Even Longchen couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Li Su, who was standing close to them, couldn't help but fly out and heavily hit the walls on both sides. I told you to save him, not to kill him. Alchemist Lu's killing intent was faintly visible. His eyes were filled with cold light as he stared at Long Chen. At this moment, he felt that he had been greatly insulted. Poochie, Poochie. However, Long Chen stared at Lin Feiyu on the ground and said indifferently, "Look at the 2 mouthfuls of blood he spat out and then look at his pulse. Then you'll know if I did anything wrong." Alchemist Lu saw that Lin Feiyu actually spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. He quickly squatted down and exclaimed. One of the 2 puddles of blood was as hot as fire and the other was as cold as ice. When his right hand landed on Lin Feiyu's pulse, he suddenly exclaimed, "How can this be?" His heart that was originally about to be broken has recovered. Lin Feiyu, Long Chen Feiyu's Lin Feiyu, Lin Feiyu's, Long Feiyu's, Lin Feiyu's Lin. These few kicks seemed casual, but Long Chen used his powerful divine sense as the foundation. Every kick landed on the intersection of cold and heat, forcefully forcing out most of the cold and heat energy from Lin Feiyu's body. Long Chen shook his head and sighed, his body already has cold and gloomy energy in it. When you gave him the fierce flame pill, the cold and heat would repel each other. As long as he doesn't use his strength for half a month, he'll be fine. However, that gumai pill of yours is no different from adding fire to boiling oil. Especially the pills you make, every single one of them has been specially purified. If you also gave him the second pill, I'm afraid that his heart would instantly break and he would die." Long Chen's simple words caused Alchemist Lu's expression to change greatly. He took 2 steps back, as if he had fallen into endless contemplation. After a while, he smiled bitterly and said to Lin Feng, "I've learned my lesson. The gumai pill could condense one's blood, increase one's strength, and even temper one's martial vein. Normally, when a martial artist was injured, they would take one. However, for Lin Feiyu, who was already tortured by the fierce flame pill and cold and gloomy energy, it was no different from adding oil to the fire. The most important thing was that every time he made a pill, he had to quench it a few times. With Lin Feiyu's current situation, as long as he took his pill, it would be the last straw that broke the camel's back. Cold and heat clashed, yin and yang counteracted, and the 5 elements restrained each other. This was a lesson that all alchemists had to be familiar with when they entered the sect. However, he, a spirit-level alchemist, was not even as good as a Long family youth who was called trash. At this moment, Yanghong also looked at Long Chen in a new light. She shook her head and said with a smile, "I didn't think that the trash young master that everyone in Iron Mountain City said was unworthy of his name. Today, Alchemist Lu and I can be considered to be similar. I apologize to you here." At this moment, Li Su was in a very sorry state. Her hair was messy, and the sexy robe on her body was also covered in blood because of Lin Feiyu. Now that she saw Long Chen being treated so politely by Alchemist Lu and Yanghong, she immediately felt very angry. However, on the surface, she did not show it and slowly walked toward Long Chen. "Long Chen, I misunderstood you today. Thank you for saving Big Brother Feiyu. Alchemist Lu's pill should be enough for you to break through. At least you didn't work for nothing." At the side, Long Chen's eyes were like knives. He sneered and looked down at Li Su with his cold eyes. Li Su's words seemed to be apologizing and thanking him, making it seem like she was very generous. However, in reality, she wanted to divide the relationship between him and Alchemist Lu. She deliberately pointed out the 2 bottles of pills and told the 2 that this was a deal. Li Su frowned when Long Chen stared at her. She could not help but cross her arms in front of her. She only felt that the surrounding temperature had dropped by a few degrees. Lin Feiyu didn't die. Indeed, he doesn't need to thank me. He should be thanking you the most. Long Chen's smile became even wider. The meaning behind his words was self-evident. These strange words made Li Su's body tremble uncontrollably. She stared at Long Chen in shock and said involuntarily, What do you mean by that? I only carried Big Brother Feiyu back. I didn't do anything." "Oh? Then why don't you tell me why the cold aura in Lin Feiyu's body has not dissipated after so long?" Long Chen's voice was filled with disdain as he stared at Li Su. "Originally, I was wondering why Lin Feiyu, as the second young master of the Lin clan, would still have yin qi in his body even if he was heavily poisoned. However, when I saw the pool of blood on the ground, I completely understood. This is not some kind of cold poison. This is pure qi. Am I right? However, this Lin Feiyu did not even think that it was because of you. Instead, he thought that his cold poison was not completely cleansed. Long Chen's words instantly caused Li Su's face to lose all color. Meanwhile, Alchemist Lu and Yanhong's expressions also darkened. They stared at Li Su with an unfriendly expression. Alchemist Lu even walked to Lin Feiyu's side. He stretched out his hand to check the pool of blood that was rising with cold air. Using yang to replenish yin. What a vicious woman. Alchemist Lu's aura rose. His eyes flashed with killing intent. At this moment, Lin Feiyu also woke up. He stared at Li Su while he was still weak. He asked in a low voice, Long Chen, is what you said true? Tell me personally. Chapter 21. Chapter 21 Crack Elixir. The art of plucking yin to replenish yang was a technique that was harmful to the harmony of the heavens. It was very different from the art of dual cultivation. Just like what Li Su had done, if another 2 or 3 years had passed, Lin Feiyu would most likely have died an unnatural death, and her cultivation speed would have increased by several times. Therefore, this kind of secret technique was also known as the evil art. Alchemist Lu, Uncle Lu, I beg of you. Help me kill this woman. Lin Feiyu's eyes were filled with hatred. He felt as if his heart was being torn apart. Originally, he had even planned to propose to the Li family. But now, his heart was filled with murderous intent. The depth of his love was nothing more than this. Alchemist Lu nodded heavily. He looked at Lin Feiyu with a gratified expression. If Lin Feiyu was still obsessed with women at this moment, then even if he was talented, he would not be able to go far on the path of cultivation. Cultivating evil arts is forbidden by the Empire's laws. After all, we're acquaintances. I'll give you a chance to commit suicide. Behind Alchemist Lu, there were 8 illusory images of dragons and elephants. Li Su could not stop trembling. He did not expect that Long Chen would see through his cultivation of the art of leaving yang to replenish yin. He also did not expect that Long Chen would be able to cure Lin Feiyu. Even if I die, I'll take a piece of trash like you down with me. However, at this moment, Li Su's entire body suddenly emitted an unprecedented cold aura. His speed suddenly increased explosively, rushing towards Long Chen. Behind Yanhong, the shadow of a dragon and elephant flashed. Just as he was about to stop them, he felt an unprecedented murderous intent. Even he could not help but feel cold all over. The source of this murderous intent was Long Chen. Was this really the trash young master of the Long family? With such a murderous aura, even if his cultivation was low, how could he be considered trash? I'll kill him. At this moment, Long Chen suddenly shouted. Not only did he not retreat, but he actually leaped forward like a cunning rabbit and as fast as lightning. Stacking Wave's fist. In an instant, the sound of qi exploding continuously resounded. Long Chen's fists were like a tsunami. His fist had already reached the perfection of martial arts, in addition to the strength of more than 800 jin. Even a 9th-level mortal martial realm martial artist would not necessarily be able to withstand this fist, let alone Li Su. Crack crack crack. The sound of bones shattering echoed in the surroundings. Li Su didn't even have the time to scream before he was already lying on the ground with his eyes wide open, vomiting blood as his aura slowly dissipated. This punch directly shattered all the bones in her body. The moment Li Su died, Long Chen let out a long sigh of relief. He felt that the thoughts in his heart had become a little clearer. The resentment and hatred he had for Li Su in his previous life had also vanished at this moment. At this moment, Long Chen suddenly had an epiphany. Perhaps this was the way to break through the sovereign realm and step into the great emperor realm. This was also why one had to obtain the Primal Chaos Golden Codex in order to reach the great emperor realm. Alchemist Lu and Yanhong couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. Their opinion of Long Chen had risen by several notches. They had already mentally prepared themselves for Long Chen's strength, but that decisive killing intent and sky-piercing killing intent left them speechless. The two of them looked at each other and secretly thought that this child would definitely be a dragon or phoenix among men in the future. The so-called word trash was simply the biggest joke in the world. On the side, Lin Feiyu endured the pain in his chest and stood up. He walked in front of Long Chen and bent down. He clasped his fist and said, "I am unable to repay the favor of saving my life. If there is anything that I, Lin Feiyu, can do, I will not hesitate to die 1,000 times." Long Chen nodded. He secretly thought that although Lin Feiyu was a little brainless in front of women, he was still considered a man of iron. After saying that, Lin Feiyu didn't have the slightest intention of wasting time. He actually directly said goodbye as if he was very disgusted by the bloodstains on his body. When he passed by Li Su's corpse, he deeply sighed and couldn't help but have some sadness in his eyes. However, he suddenly seemed to have remembered something. He turned around and said to Long Chen, "You and I still have a battle before the grand competition of the 3 cities. At that time, I will definitely win." Long Chen touched his nose and didn't say anything. He secretly thought that by the time the grand competition of the 3 cities came, he would probably be in the spiritual martial realm. At that time, not to mention Lin Feiyu, even Alchemist Lu and Yanghong in front of him would probably be no match for him. "Both of you, if there is nothing else, I will also take my leave." Long Chen saw that it was already late, so he walked out with Qing Xian. Yanghong and Alchemist Lu looked at each other and smiled. They secretly thought that today was really interesting. After a while, Yanghong suddenly patted her head and said, "This kid hasn't paid the alchemist yet, and he even blew up one of my furnaces. This kid is quite good at acting. He even used 2 pill bottles to store them. However, his understanding of pills is really terrifying. Maybe there is an alchemist master secretly teaching him. Let's go and see what kind of pills this kid is refining." After this incident, Yanghong and Alchemist Lu became closer. The two of them walked into the alchemist room one after the other. They were somewhat interested in the pills that Long Chen was refining. The two of them entered the alchemist room and immediately shook their heads and smiled bitterly. Not only was there black smoke everywhere, but one of the furnaces was actually blown to pieces. Each alchemist room had a total of 3 furnaces, and each of them weighed 300 kilograms. To want to blow up the furnaces, this guy really didn't know how to control the fire. Under normal circumstances, this kind of situation would only happen when refining pills for the first time. This kid left quite quickly. Otherwise, this furnace would have to pay nearly 10,000 taels of silver. Yanghong smiled bitterly. Alchemist Lu on the side was slightly surprised. He walked to the bottom of the furnace in the corner and picked up a shiny black pill. There were even 2 cracks on it. Although this pill has 2 strange cracks, it seems to be a finished pill. There are also a few pills around. It should be enough to compensate for the loss of your sea-sky commerce. Alchemist Lu looked at it for a while and was a little curious about the 2 cracks on it. When Yanghong heard this, she felt that this guy actually refined a few pills. No matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. She couldn't waste it. She casually put it away. The two of them were surprised to find that the 3 medicinal pills they had picked up had 1 to 3 cracks that were neither big nor small. Yanghong didn't think too much about it. She only thought that the furnace had exploded. It was already very lucky to have 3 good medicinal pills. Sell these 3 pills at a low price. As for the other losses, deduct them from my account. Yanghong casually ordered. Then, the two of them left the alchemist room. On the other side, after Long Chen left, there was a hint of joy on his face. Today's harvest was truly beyond his expectations. He had refined 2 bottles of pills with cracks on them, and he had also obtained 10 burning blood pills from Alchemist Lu, as well as a pile of silver. These resources were enough for him to cultivate in seclusion for a long period of time. However, just as he walked a few steps, his footsteps suddenly stopped. He stopped Qing Xian behind him. After a moment, he sneered and said, "Qing Xian, you wait for me in the alley next door." I'll go to the front and take a look. After Qing Xian left, Long Chen muttered to himself, Li Su, there are still 2 spirit martial realm experts. Very good, very good. Chapter 22. Chapter 22 The Way of the Assassins in the Night. Li Su stroked the longsword in his hand. His face was livid with rage, and the corners of his mouth were filled with murderous intent. He had been waiting here for an entire day. Seeing that Haitian commerce was about to close for the day, he finally saw Long Chen walk out of the commerce hall. Then, he saw Qing Xian turn around and leave, leaving Long Chen alone. The 3 of them didn't care. After all, their main target was Long Chen. But when they looked back, Long Chen stepped into a shadow and disappeared from the street. What's going on? Where are the people? Don't tell me he got away. Li Jiao said angrily, his fingers turning white from gripping his sword. The 2 middle-aged men behind him were also puzzled. They did not know why Long Chen had disappeared in the blink of an eye. Young master, it seems that we have been discovered. He should be hiding in the houses on both sides of the street. Have we been discovered? Li Su was so angry that his body was trembling. He suddenly shouted angrily, so what if he found out? I'll rush over and kill him. At worst, I'll kill everyone in the house. As he spoke, he actually raised his sword and charged forward, his entire body filled with ruthlessness. The 2 middle-aged men shook their heads and sighed, secretly thinking that this young master's mind was too simple. One of them hurriedly rushed out to stop him. Chasing after the Long family's young master in the city in such an open manner was much more serious than an assassination attempt. However, just as the 2 of them rushed out, they heard a whimper behind them, followed by the muffled sound of something heavy falling to the ground. Plop! Li Su and the middle-aged man instinctively turned around. Then, they leaped up and held their swords in front of them. Instantly, their hair stood on end and their eyes widened. The 2 of them had just walked a few meters when the middle-aged man in the spirit martial realm behind them fell to the ground. His neck was twisted at a strange angle and he was dead. Who is it? Who is there? How dare you kill my Li family's spirit martial realm expert? You must be tired of living. The 2 of them looked terrified. They had been able to silently kill a cultivator of the first Ling Qi layer at such a close distance without them noticing. That kind of strange thing made their hearts tremble. They leaned their backs against each other. However, the 2 of them had chosen a dark path. This path was the path back to the Long family. At this moment, the silence and darkness of the night seemed to have become a death sentence. The 2 of them were instantly drenched in cold sweat and slowly moved towards the street in front of them. Their footsteps were very slow, one at the front and one at the back, not daring to relax in the slightest. Just as they passed the shadow of a fence, Li Jiao suddenly felt the weight on his back loosen. A gust of cold wind blew, and a chill ran down his spine that he had never felt before. Plop! The middle-aged man in the spirit martial realm, who had been standing back to back with him, suddenly fell forward and fell into a pool of blood. Ah! Li Su broke down completely at that moment. He swung the sword in his hand madly and charged towards the main street. However, he had only run a few meters when he was stopped by a figure that darted out from the shadows. This person was Long Chen. The moment Li Su saw Long Chen, he subconsciously took 2 steps back. His voice trembled as he said, "It's you? You killed them. How is this possible? You're just a useless young master of the Long family. Last month, when the big families tested you, you were only at the first level of the mortal martial realm. How could you kill 2 cultivators of the spirit martial realm?" Li Su shouted hysterically. He couldn't believe that the man in front of him, whom he had always regarded as a flying figure, could kill 2 cultivators of the spirit martial realm in less than 10 breaths. Long Chen sneered, "You ambushed me here. Weren't you waiting to assassinate me? Now that I'm here, why are you afraid?" Looking at Li Tian's terrified appearance, Long Chen didn't have the slightest bit of pity. Among the 3 sons of the Li family, Li Tian was vicious and extremely lecherous. Although the second son, Li Su, was stupid and not as sinister as Li Tian, he was the most violent. In his previous life, after the Long family was destroyed, at least half of the women and children were killed by him. After that, Iron Mountain City fell into the hands of the Li family. Li Su became even more vicious and was no different from a beast. As for the eldest son of the Li family, Li Yuanwu, Long Chen knew very little about him. This person didn't appear on the day of the Long family's destruction after the Three Cities tournament. However, it was said that his talent was outstanding and he was the disciple of a wandering elder from the 5 big sections. His strength was extremely terrifying. At this moment, Li Su knew that Long Chen wasn't as simple as he looked on the surface. Seeing Long Chen walking towards him, he did what he thought was the smartest thing he had done in his life. That was to run. As he ran, he screamed loudly. However, his throat was gradually filled with blood. What should have been a heart-wrenching scream turned into a whimper. A sharp stone shot out from his throat and fell to the ground. He looked at Long Chen slowly walking towards him, his eyes full of unwillingness and confusion. Assassination? If you knew who the brother of the ruler of the Dragon City was, you wouldn't have done such a stupid thing. Long Chen said calmly as he removed a bronze ring from Li Tian's finger. At this point, a carefree figure holding a wine jug appeared in his mind. Immediately, he clenched his fists tightly and his eyes turned red. If it weren't for him, perhaps Long Chen wouldn't even have the chance to devour the Chaos Golden Codex. In his previous life, Long Chen had been lonely all his life. He only had this sworn brother as his companion. Big brother, we'll meet again very soon. After killing the 3 people, Long Chen's killing intent didn't decrease. Instead, it increased. In the last battle, everyone who tried to kill him was deeply engraved in his mind. The next morning, in the Li family's meeting hall, the Li family's patriarch, Li Kong, had a cold expression. Looking at the 4 corpses wrapped in white cloth in the center of the hall, his body couldn't help but tremble. After a long while, he seemed to have lost all his strength. In an instant, he seemed to have aged 10 years. In a low voice, he asked, "Has the identity been confirmed?" "It really is Li Su." "And my son, Li Su, patriarch, please restrain your grief." The Li family's elders were all silent. They didn't dare to make a sound. In their hearts, they thought that there was nothing to confirm. One look and they would know. However, Li Kong didn't want to look. He couldn't believe that his second brother was also dead. "Patriarch, the matter you asked us to investigate has been investigated." At that time, the second young master was indeed going to assassinate Long Chen. And Long Chen had indeed just returned to the Long family's residence. An elder said submissively, "But the way the 3 of them died is too strange. Based on the scene, it is very likely that they were assassinated by an expert skilled in the way of assassins. The 3 of them were killed in one blow. The 2 spirit martial realm experts didn't even have the slightest trace of resistance. As for Li Su, according to the news from the Lin family, she cultivated evil arts to harm the second young master of the Lin family. She was discovered by alchemist Lu of the Lin family and executed on the spot. The news caused the Li family members to sigh. The deaths of Li Su and the other 2 made them even more confused. They didn't have any intentions of thinking about Long Chen. After all, in their view, Long Chen couldn't have killed 2 spirit martial realm experts without leaving a trace. "Pass down my order, have you and will return." Li Kong looked at the corpses at his feet, his voice growing colder. Chapter 23. Seclusion. After Iron Mountain City was sealed by the purple mist, the assassination of the Li family's second young master and 2 spirit martial realm experts became the second topic of discussion. There were even many people who speculated that the Li family's young master and 2 spirit martial realm experts were secretly killed by the Long family. Their goal was to avenge the Great Elder's assassination of the Long family's young master. However, these speculations were all rumors and no one could prove it. As for Long Chen, after returning to the Long family from Sea Sky Commerce, he chose to go into seclusion. 2 bottles of cracked medicinal pills, 10 burning blood pills, a total of 28 medicinal pills, and a storage ring. Zhang Wuji muttered to himself. Long Chen sat cross-legged on the stone bed in the cultivation room. He was quite satisfied with sea-sky commerce, especially the bronze storage ring on his hand. In his previous life, when he was still a dominator, the storage ring had a space of 100,000 cubic meters, which could hold mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas. However, in the current Iron Mountain City, not everyone had a storage ring. Even if the 4 great families added together, there would not be more than 10. The reason why Li Tian had this ring was most likely because of the Li family's young master. A few days ago, Alchemist Lu had also seen one in his possession, but in comparison, it probably wasn't as large as this bronze ring. It seems that Li Yuanwu has a master with good cultivation. In my previous life, because of Li Tian, Li Yuanwu was not among the people who participated in the destruction of the Long family after the 3 cities tournament. However, now that Li Tian and Li Su are dead, the development of the situation must have changed. I must include this person and his master. Only then will there be no mistakes, Long Chen muttered to himself. As he spoke, his mind sank into the storage ring. Then, his expression changed and another bottle of pills appeared in his hand. Then, with a flash of light, a long sword appeared. 2 realm-breaking pills, 1 Qinggang sword. This sword's quality is not bad, but it has not been sharpened. If I add a little formation, its power will increase by 30%. Long Chen was quite curious about this long sword. He did not expect Li Su to have a good quality black iron sword. This surprised him. This sword was much better than the long sword in Li Su's hand. In fact, Long Chen did not know that this long sword was originally given to Li Su by Li Yuanwu when he left. He planned to give it to Li Tian after Li Tian finished the trial so that he could recruit people according to his own sword skills. Unfortunately, Li Tian died at Long Chen's hands. This semi-finished Qinggang sword was left unfinished. As for the other 2 realm-breaking pills, Li Su and Li Tian, they did not have the time to use it. In addition to being pleasantly surprised, Long Chen's opinion of Li Yuanwu rose a bit. After all, the value of this realm-breaking pill was equivalent to 10 burning blood pills. In a month's time, I should be able to attack the spirit martial realm or even higher. Throwing away distracting thoughts, Long Chen waved his right hand and threw 3 cracked qi-gathering pills into his mouth. This qi-gathering pill was a pill that he refined himself by relying on the pill inheritance. The grade was not high, but it had a great effect on moral martial realm martial artists. It could increase the speed of martial vein condensation. As for the cracks on it, there were many theories. For example, the core of refining this qi-gathering pill was to remove the impurities in the spirit medicine, making the medicinal properties more pure and easier to absorb. If it was a normal mortal stage alchemist, they would need 3 spirit medicine to refine 1 pill. But Long Chen only used 20 spirit medicine to refine 18 pills. Not only that, the more cracks there were on each pill, the richer the spirit energy, the faster the absorption, and the less spirit medicine wasted. According to the explanation in the medicinal pill inheritance that Long Chen had obtained, in a perfect state, every medicinal pill could have 9 more cracks. In other words, after a stock of spiritual medicine was refined into a medicinal pill, the impurities would be removed and the rest would be integrated into the medicinal pill. In short, it was twice the result with half the effort. When the spirit medicine was transformed into a pill, not a single bit would be wasted. According to Long Chen's knowledge, even though he had reached the Dominator realm in his previous life, he had never seen such a cracked pill. This made him respect the genius who cultivated both alchemy and array. After the 3 qi-gathering pills entered his mouth, Long Chen's body suddenly emitted a light blue spirit energy like a cyclone, and then swept through his entire body. Hoochie hoochie. Long Chen's chest violently moved up and down. His dantian was like a bellows, emitting bursts of thunderous sounds. A flashing blood-red martial vein slowly formed in Long Chen's body. This was already the 9th martial vein in Long Chen's body. If an ordinary person condensed 9 martial veins, they would choose to step into the spirit martial realm. However, Long Chen was not like this. The Primal Chaos Golden Codex required one to condense 24 martial veins in the mortal martial realm. which was the 12th level of the mortal martial realm that no one had ever reached before. Time flew by, and Longchen quickly felt the benefits of the cracked pill. Originally, it would take at least half a day to absorb one qi-gathering pill, but now he only used 2 hours to completely refine 3 pills. At the same time, the 9th martial vein was completely condensed. After tasting it, Longchen directly swallowed 5 qi-gathering pills, and directly condensed the 10th martial vein. If others saw this kind of cultivation method in breakthrough speed, they would be shocked to the extreme. After all, everyone had different physiques, and there would be bottlenecks. Taking pills to break through to the next realm was very likely to cause one's meridians to explode and die. However, Longchen did not care at all, because he had the body of a great emperor. After awakening the body of a great emperor in his previous life, in order to quickly raise his cultivation level and take revenge, he cultivated even more crazily than now. Not to mention dozens of pills at once, he once plundered an entire vein of spirit chi in a day. As for bottlenecks, they did not exist. Otherwise, he would not have been able to become the youngest dominator in his previous life. This was the heaven-defying aspect of the body of a great emperor. In front of him, there was no bottleneck at all. Because of his physique, all realms were naturally achieved. Boom! In just a few hours, there was a loud bang in the cultivation room. Longchen had completely stepped into the 5th level of the mortal martial realm, and condensed the 10th martial vein. However, all of this was not over. He was still crazily swallowing pills, but because of the increase in his cultivation level, the amount of pills needed began to increase. Therefore, the breakthrough speed began to slow down. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. In the side hall of the Long family, Long Haotian was like a deflated balloon. In these few days, his hair had even turned white. Li Su was also dead. Others did not know, but he knew clearly that Li Su had gone to assassinate Longchen. Now that Longchen had returned, Li Su was dead. How is this possible? Li Su is already at the 6th level of the mortal martial realm, and he even has a spirit martial realm martial artist by his side. How could he not kill Longchen? These few days, the Elder Hall has gradually investigated us. Otherwise, we should find a chance to escape from Iron Mountain City. Long Haotian was almost screaming. Chapter 24. The Li Clan's threat. Iron Mountain City, Li Clan. Outside the entire Li family, there were hundreds of soldiers in black iron armor stationed there. Each one of them had the cultivation of the spirit martial realm and was filled with killing intent. These were the Imperial Guards of the Empire. They represented the will of the Empire. The Long clan is finished this time. I didn't expect Li Yuanwu's master to be the master of the Empire's crown prince. Not only that, the man who came back with Li Yuanwu is the son of the Zhenyuan general. He is the crown prince's favorite. It seems that the crown prince thinks highly of Li Yuanwu. If Li Yuanwu becomes the crown prince's disciple, he will be the crown prince's disciple. This status alone will make the Li clan the overlord of Iron Mountain City. Every person who passed by the Long clan's residence was in awe. They were secretly worried for the Long clan. Just these hundreds of black armored soldiers were enough to make the Li clan the #1 clan in Iron Mountain City. Inside the residence, Li Yuanwu was sitting on the patriarch's seat. His father, Li Kang, was sitting next to him. Beside him, a handsome man with sword-like eyes and starry eyebrows stood beside him. He was wearing a divine silver armor, and he was imposing without being angry. The surrounding Li family members were all silent as they exchanged greetings. "Father, you're saying that Li Tian and Li Su died because of the Long clan?" Li Yuanwu's voice was as cold as ice. Li Kang nodded. He clenched his fist and said sternly, "It's all because of that trash, Long Chen. When the purple mist sealed the mountain, he used some unknown method to kill Li Tian. A few days ago, when your brother wanted to take revenge, he was secretly killed by the Long clan." Li Yuanwu nodded and said in a deep voice, "Chang Feng, please go to the Li clan again and pass on my message to the Long clan." The silver-armored man on the side shouted. He turned around and walked out. After that, he brought 20 black armored soldiers to the Long clan's residence. There were more than 20 black armored soldiers. Each one of them was at the 3rd level of the Ling Chi layer. They looked like a black flood as they walked down the street. This group of people quickly arrived in front of the Long clan's residence. They were in a neat formation. The surrounding people were all in awe. They couldn't help but shake their heads while staring at the Long clan's residence. At the gate, one of the Long family's gatekeepers saw this scene and hurriedly closed the gate, shouting as he ran inside. "Patriarch, there are a bunch of Spirit Martial Realm Black Iron soldiers blocking the gate." The old man guarding the gate rushed into the meeting hall in a panic and fell to the ground. Long Tianqing and the others from the Hall of Elders were shocked. Why would the Empire's army surround the Long family? Could it be that the rumors in the city these days are true? That the master of the eldest son of the Li family is really the master of the first prince of the Empire? An old man cried out. Long Tianqing's face instantly turned ashen. He led the people from the Hall of Elders out of the mansion. Long Haotian, who was walking at the back, revealed a smile on his face. He was overjoyed in his heart and felt as if the heavens were helping him. When Long Tianqing and the other elders saw this group of black iron soldiers, their faces immediately darkened. It seemed that the rumors were true. Li Yuanwu's master was really the master of the first prince of the empire. In other words, Li Yuanwu was the first prince's junior brother. When this thought appeared, every disciple of the Long family felt as if they were struck by lightning. There were countless cities under the empire. Iron Mountain City was located in a remote corner. How could it compete with the first prince of the empire? "Sir, what is the meaning of this?" Long Tianqing took a deep breath and walked forward to ask in a deep voice. "I am Xia Changfeng, the son of the Zhenyuan general. I am here today to give the Long family a way out." The silver-armored man stood in front of the crowd with a playful smile. In his eyes, the Long family of Iron Mountain City was just a joke. What way out? Long Tianqing clenched his fists tightly. Cripple Long Chen, break the tendons in his arms and legs, and hand him over to the Li family to mourn for Li Tian and Li Su for 3 years. Otherwise, after the grand competition of the 3 cities, the Long family will be exterminated. Hiss. Xia Changfeng's glance made the surrounding people suck in a breath of cold air. The Long family will be exterminated? In the past, even if the head of the Li family had said such arrogant words, no one would have taken it seriously. But now, everyone deeply believed that the person who spoke was the son of the Empire's major general, the Zhenyuan general. That's all I have to say. If Long Chen is not sent to the Li family before the grand competition of the 3 cities, the consequences will be at your own risk. Xia Changfeng sneered and led the many armored soldiers away. After Xia Changfeng left, the entire Long family seemed to be shrouded by a layer of dark clouds. Long Tianqing and the many people of the Hall of Elders stayed in the meeting hall until sunset. "All of you get out. As long as I, Long Tianqing, am alive, I will never agree to such conditions." With Long Tianqing's angry roar, the meeting came to an end. But in the next few days, there would be noise in the meeting hall every day. Long Haotian, who had lost his support, had gathered a group of supporters again. For a time, the Long family was completely divided because of Xia Changfeng's words. On one side, there were many elders led by the second elder and some of the younger generation who believed that Long Chen must not be handed over. Otherwise, the Long family would be annexed by the Li family one day. On the other side, there was a group of people led by Long Haotian. This group of people believed that the identity of Li Yuanwu from the Li family had already exceeded the expectations of all the families in Iron Mountain City. The Li family would definitely become the overlord of Iron Mountain City. If handing over Long Chen could appease the anger of the Li family, why not? Of course, most of the people who stood behind Long Tianqing had seen the scene of Long Chen killing the first elder. In their hearts, Long Chen was no longer the trash of the past. In the cultivation room, Long Chen looked at the empty burning blood-pilled bottle in his hand and let out a sigh of relief. He said to himself, "I was only a little bit away from stepping into the spiritual martial realm." The next 2 realm-breaking pills are at least enough for me to step into the spiritual martial realm. Longchen casually punched the strength measuring stone pillar. The entire strength measuring stone pillar was directly shattered. Mortal martial realm level 12, 24 martial veins, a single punch of 2400 gene, comparable to the spiritual martial realm level 2, the strength of 2 dragon elephants. Longchen laughed. In just a dozen days, he had stepped into the mortal martial realm level 12 from the mortal martial realm level 4. This cultivation speed was much faster than in his previous life. Consecutively crossing 8 levels, it could be said to be a cultivation speed that defied the natural order. Rumble. Just as Longchen was praising the primal chaos golden codex, the stone door of the alchemy room slowly opened. Qing Xian walked in with a face full of anxiety. "Young master, you have finally finished your cultivation. Master said that as long as you wake up from your meditation, I should immediately leave the Long family with you, far away from Iron Mountain City." Qing Xian's face was filled with sadness, but he was also very anxious. Longchen's face suddenly sank. He asked, "What do you mean? Did something happen to the Li family?" Chapter 25. Rushing to the door, hearing Long Xing's mocking voice from outside, Long Chen's face became gloomy. In his previous life, Long Haotian and his son had colluded with the Li family and caused the Long family to fall into eternal damnation. Now that he was reborn, although he knew that the two were stupid and self-opinionated, he still had a trace of benevolence. After all, Long Haotian was still his uncle and Long Xing was his cousin. But now it seems that a leopard cannot change its spots. Once there is a chance, the two will stir up trouble and bring disaster to the Long family. Long Chen, as a man of the Long family, you naturally have to go through water and tread on fire for the family. Because of you, the Long family has become enemies with the Li family. The Li family's Li Yuanwu and the eldest prince are martial brothers. If you still think of yourself as a man of the Long family, then cripple your own cultivation and follow me to the Li family to ask for forgiveness. Long Xing kept mentioning the family, as if everything was for the sake of the Long family. Long Chen heard this and frowned. He did not think that Li Yuanwu's mysterious master was the master of the Black Dragon Empire's eldest prince. If that was the case, then things were indeed a little troublesome. But in just a moment, Long Chen threw this matter to the back of his mind. The Black Dragon Empire was only one of the 9 great countries under the 5 great sections. In the entire Black Dragon Empire, the strongest person was probably only at the divine transformation or void level. It was not a very high level of cultivation. If there were enough resources, they could reach that level in less than 2 months. At that time, the entire Black Dragon Empire would not be a problem. After the Spirit Martial Realm, it was the Divine Transformation Realm where one could release their chi to kill people. Only at this level could one be considered a martial artist and not a martial artist. In his previous life, when he entered the Wanjian sect, one of the 5 great sects, he completely understood one thing. The so-called Divine Transformation Realm was only the beginning of the endless path. A man of the Long family, what a man of the Long family. I really don't know if you and your father have the blood of the Long family or the blood of the Li family. After a short moment of thought, Long Chen stared at Long Xing and shouted. Long Xing's face suddenly darkened. He took a step forward and said gloomily, "Impudent! How dare a junior like you insult my father? My father has worked hard for the Long clan all his life. If he had become the head of the Long clan, none of this would have happened. Long Xing, do you still refuse to come to your senses?" Once the Li family obtains the resources under the empire after the grand competition of the 3 cities, and you and your father make the Long family's internal affairs a mess and even sell the Long family's assets to the Li family, how long can you live even if you obtain the Long family? Long Chen stared at Long Xing, and made his last attempt. He only hoped that he could turn around at the last moment, and at the same time, his right hand slowly gripped onto the Cyan Ridge sword. At this moment, the sword had already been sharpened and the formation had been engraved. It was just that it had yet to drink blood. Take him down and send him to the Li family. You still want to frame me for colluding with the Li family. Now that the Li family is no longer something my Long family can contend against, only by handing you over will I have a chance to live. However, Long Xing's face was gloomy, without a trace of repentance. Following Long Xing's order, the surrounding middle-aged men instantly surrounded Long Chen. These people were all from the Long family, and many of them were even new members of the Elder Hall. You refuse to come to your senses. With that thought, Long Chen no longer held any hope. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and the long sword in his right hand suddenly attacked. The sword shadow was like light, and its momentum was like the wind, whistling. Waves of sword shadows scattered in all directions like a gust of wind. Using the wind to control the sword, using the sword as the wind, in an instant, everyone felt that countless sword lights cover the sky and cover the sun. King Stage Martial Technique, Imperial Wind Sword Technique. He had immersed himself in this sword technique for more than 10 years in his previous life, and had long since refined it to perfection. Back then, when the Purple Mist Mountain was sealed, he had used it to defeat Li Tian, and now that he was using it again, its power was more than 100 times stronger. Poo. With a single sword strike, the 7 or 8 late-stage ordinary martial stage middle-aged men at the front were sent flying one by one like sandbags. A line of blood appeared on their necks, but their lives were not harmed. It was clear that they still cared about their blood ties. Whoever dares to attack again, kill. Long Chen roared, his murderous intent was awe-inspiring, as if he had an inviolable will. The mortal martial late-stage middle-aged men on the ground were all shocked, and fiercely wiped off the bloodstains on their necks. If this sword was even a little bit closer, it would have killed them on the spot. Long Xing's complexion changed greatly. He did not expect that after not seeing Long Chen for more than 10 days, his strength would increase explosively again. So many mortal martial stage 7th level and even peak experts were not his match. But he obviously had not reached the spirit martial realm. How could he have such battle strength? Long Xing trembled with fear, and did not dare to stay any longer. His entire person rolled and crawled to escape. Long Chen held his sword, looked at the people around him, coldly snorted, and unhurriedly followed behind Long Xing. He knew that today he had to get rid of the Long family's internal trouble, so that he could get rid of it once and for all. While Long Xing was escaping, he saw Long Chen following behind him. Suddenly, his hair stood on end, and cold sweat flowed down his body. He ran straight towards Long Haotian's courtyard. "Father, save me, save me!" Long Xing roared, and directly broke through the door. Behind the door, 2 spirit martial stage elders suddenly stood out. The moment they saw Long Chen, they frowned. They secretly thought that Long Xing was useless. Even with so many mortal martial late-stage experts, he was still being chased by Long Chen. "Stop!" One of the newly promoted elders stared at Long Chen and shouted, "You and I are both Long family disciples. At this time, the Li family's power is not something our Long family can contend against." Nearly half of the elders agreed to the Long family's request. "You, get lost." However, before he finished speaking, Long Chen's body was like a dragon, and the next moment, he appeared in front of him, and the sword in his hand directly attacked. So fast. The 2 newly promoted elders had just stepped into the spirit martial stage. Compared to Long Chen, the difference was like heaven and earth. Under the sword, the 2 were directly swept dozens of meters away. They vomited blood and fainted. It was unknown whether they were alive or dead. How is this possible? You are actually not afraid of the spirit martial stage. At this moment, Long Xing was completely terrified. Both of his legs were somewhat weak. Long Chen actually had the battle strength to kill the spirit martial stage. However, before he could take a few steps, he bumped into Long Haotian's chest. Long Haotian stared at Long Chen from afar. Not only was he not shocked or frightened, but his face was full of joy. He shouted, "Long Chen offended his superiors, openly provoked the Elder Hall, trespassed here with the intention to assassinate, kill him on the spot." Following Long Haotian's shout, he actually personally rushed out and directly arrived in front of Long Chen. His eyes were full of ridicule. Everyone around shook their heads. Long Hao Yin's cultivation was at the peak of the third level of the spirit martial stage. The strength of a single punch was close to 3,000 or 4,000 pounds. In the entire Long family, perhaps only Long Tianqing and 2 or 3 other people could suppress him. Now, Long Chen's idiotic rush was simply suicidal. Chapter 26. Eliminating internal trouble. Li Yuanwu's words had caused the Long clan to fall apart. When Long Tianqing heard that Long Chen had been captured by Long Hao Yin's men after coming out of seclusion, he was furious. When he heard that Long Chen had barged into Long Hao Yin's residence alone with a sword, he became even more anxious. Long Tianqing led a group of elders to rescue Long Chen. However, the more they went, the more frightened they became. The peak of the mortal martial realm and the spirit martial realm were all defeated in one strike. The traces of battle were clean and neat. The Long family disciples who woke up were shocked by Long Chen's strength. When they got close to Long Hao Yin's house, they heard Long Hao Yin shout. Suddenly, they knew something was wrong and rushed in. However, the next scene made them stunned. Turning cloud palm. Long Hao Yin saw that Long Tianqing and the others had arrived. Not only did he not stop, he even sped up. Both of his feet suddenly stepped on the ground and the ground sank half an inch. His whole body rushed towards Long Chen. Both of his palms were like clouds falling towards Long Chen. There were bursts of explosions in the air. If one looked carefully, they would see that his palms were covered with black iron gloves. You only have this little strength. However, Long Chen did not retreat in the slightest under such a terrifying attack. He did not even use the Imperial Wind Sword technique. Instead, he stabbed out with his sword. You're courting death. When Long Hao Yin saw this scene, he suddenly felt that Long Chen was an idiot. With his cultivation of the third level of the spirit martial realm, he had a strength of 3,000 jin. Even if it was a small mountain, a hole would be hammered in it. How could a mortal martial realm cultivator resist? Even a 9th level mortal martial realm cultivator only had a strength of 900 jin. The difference was like heaven and earth. Long Tianqing and the other elders who rushed over were about to rush up. However, they were too late to stop this attack. After all, Long Chen did not have the slightest intention of dodging. But just when everyone thought that Long Chen was dead, Long Hao Yin knew that he was wrong when his glove and the Qinggang sword clashed. He saw the spirit inscriptions on Long Chen's sword flash past. Although Long Chen was only in the mortal martial realm, the sword in his hand actually sent out a huge force like a tsunami. Ka-ka, Puchi. Long Hao Yin flew backward with blood spurting out of his mouth. He slammed heavily into the wall 10 meters behind him. The wall collapsed and buried him inside. How is this possible? He is only in the mortal martial realm. Hao Yin, Long Hao Yin, what is going on? How could this be? He was defeated in a single move. How could we hand such a genius over to the Li clan to die? The surrounding people cried out in shock. It was as if they had seen the most unbelievable thing in the world. Looking at Long Chen's shocked face, they felt as if they were dreaming. Long Chen stood in front of the crowd and looked at the faint spiritual patterns on the long sword. He thought that this layered pattern array was quite practical. During a battle, one sword strike could increase the strength of at least 800 jin. The Green Ridge sword, which was originally of good quality, had risen by more than one level because of this formation. In the huge courtyard, even Long Tianqing couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. The dragon and elephant shadows behind him dispersed as he said in a daze, "Chener, how can you be so powerful?" It wasn't just Long Tianqing, the entire Long clan was completely astonished. Long Chen was at the ordinary martial realm, but he had defeated a cultivator at the third level of the spirit martial realm in one strike. This scene made everyone feel as if they were dreaming. Long Chen turned a blind eye to everyone's shocked gazes. He thought to himself that he had the body of a great emperor and cultivated the world's #1 secret technique. He had even become a sovereign in his previous life. If he still couldn't fight those above his level, then he would have lived a dog's life. "Father, let's talk about this later." For now, let's calm down the internal turmoil of the Long family. Uncle has been in cahoots with the Li family for a long time. Even Li Su's assassination attempt on me was most likely because of him. Long Chen sighed as he stared at Long Haotian, who was in a sorry state. Now that his cultivation had reached such a level, the people around him would definitely consider his words carefully. When his voice fell, the second elder and the others behind Long Tianqing looked at each other and stood up. He walked to the front and said, "Actually, after the incident with the great elder, I started to investigate. Long Haotian and Long Xing did have close contact with the Li family. However, the evidence was not enough, so I never said anything." Long Tianqing looked at Long Haotian and felt a chill in his heart. In fact, he might have noticed this long ago, but he didn't want to believe it. "How am I, Long Haotian, inferior to you? Why can't I become the patriarch of the Long family? I'm not willing, it's all because of you. Go die." At this time, Long Haotian suddenly burst out from the pile of rubble and rushed towards Long Chen. He actually launched a sneak attack. In an instant, before Long Chen could make a move, Long Tianqing suddenly waved his right hand. A long spear like a swimming dragon pierced through Long Haotian's chest in an instant. Long Tianqing's eyes were filled with tears. He stared at Long Haotian and said bitterly, "Big brother, even if you made 1,000 mistakes, I can forgive you. However, you shouldn't have colluded with the Li family, and you shouldn't have tried to kill Chen." Long Chen shook his head and didn't say anything. After experiencing all kinds of things in his previous life, his heart was already like a boulder. Even so, he was still calm. Long Xing, who was beside him, was already paralyzed with fear. Long Tianqing finally sighed and said in a deep voice, "Let him serve the immortals in the Long family's ancestral hall. It can be considered as atonement for his father." After speaking, Long Tianqing seemed to have lost all his strength. He waved his hand and said to the people behind him, "Now that the grand competition of the 3 cities is around the corner, you all make a plan and tell Chen. I want to be alone for these 2 days." Long Chen looked at his father's back and sighed inwardly. If his father didn't care too much about relationships and killed Long Haotian early in his previous life, perhaps so many things wouldn't have happened. However, this was what he admired the most about Long Tianqing. The second elder stared at Long Chen and murmured, "Young master, with your current cultivation, the Long family can get at least 30% of the resources distributed by the empire this time." The grand competition of the 3 cities was organized by the empire. The resources distributed by the 5 big sects were distributed to the empire, and then distributed by the empire to the big cities. The resources were distributed layer by layer according to the strength of the young generation of the big families. Therefore, the grand competition of the 3 cities was not only related to the rise of the young generation of the big families, but also related to the rise and fall of the big families. The purpose of the 5 big sects was to cultivate the young generation. After the grand competition of the 3 cities, the top 3 would have the opportunity to participate in the competition for the quota of the Path of Immortality, which was held once every 2 years. At that time, countless geniuses of the big countries under the 5 big sects would gather. The so-called Path of Immortality was a grand event held by the 5 big sects together. Many countries under the 5 big sects would gather together, and the 5 big sects would send envoys to select disciples on the Path of Immortality. Chapter 27. Tournament of the 3 Cities. The tournament of the 3 cities was about to begin. This was also the day when the young experts of Iron Mountain City and the 2 nearby cities would compete. At this moment, all the major families were leaving for the tournament. This time, a young expert has appeared in Blood Red City. He is only 22 years old and has already reached the 2nd level of the Spirit Martial Realm. This time, he will definitely stand out. That's not necessarily true. Have you forgotten about the woman in Blood Red City? Although she is 24 years old, she is still not 25 years old. She can still participate in the tournament. It has been a long time since the last tournament. I am afraid that she has at least reached the 3rd level of the Spirit Martial Realm. There are also the 4 major families of Fierce Tiger City. These 4 major families always take the first place in the tournament. This time will not be an exception. Many Li family disciples were discussing. Li Kang, the head of the Li family, who was walking at the front, could not help but laugh. He said to the many elders of the Li family beside him, in the past, it would be enough for one person to enter the top 10. However, this time, we have to compete for the top 3 positions. Head of the family is too modest. With young Master Li Yuanwu, even if we get first place, it will not be a problem. Li Kang was quite proud. It turned out that Li Yuanwu had already stepped into the spirit martial realm a few months ago. He was at the peak of the extraordinary martial realm. This kind of cultivation was enough to sweep the younger generation of Iron Mountain City. Even in the other 2 cities, only 2 or 3 people could fight with him. Li Yuanwu listened to the 2 and said indifferently, this tournament of the 3 cities was originally a joke. If I did not come back this time, I would be too lazy to participate. However, now that I participate, I naturally want to get first place. Many Li family disciples were excited. If they could get first place in the tournament of the 3 cities, the resources they would get would be enough for the Li family to become one of the top 5 families in the 3 cities. At that time, the Li family would be able to control Iron Mountain City at least until the next tournament of the 3 cities. At this moment, the Long family's team was slowly coming from another street. The 2 families looked at each other and unexpectedly stopped moving forward. Last time, if the Long family did not have a 25-year-old disciple who took advantage of his age and won the 10th place, how could the Long family suppress my Li family in Iron Mountain City? So what? This time, that person cannot participate in the tournament of the 3 cities. Now, who else in the Long family can fight? I'm afraid it would be difficult to find a few 6th-level moral martial realm martial artists in the younger generation. Isn't there still that trash young master of the Long family? Haha, it is said that he can now cultivate and has even reached the 3rd level of the moral martial realm. When the Li clan's people saw the Long clan's disciples, they immediately mocked and ridiculed them. Long Tianqing's face turned cold. He snorted coldly, unwilling to argue with them. He led the Long family members away. Long Chen, who was standing to the side, seemed oblivious to everyone's words. He just casually glanced at Li Yuanwu, who was standing at the front. Under the detection of his powerful divine sense, he couldn't help but think highly of the Li family. Li Yuanwu's meridians were as deep as an abyss. Surprisingly, he had already opened 3 meridians. In other words, he had already broken through to the 3rd Ling Qi layer. He was only around 20 years old. With this kind of cultivation level, even in the 3 big cities, he could be considered a rare genius. However, Long Chen didn't take it to heart. Although he was only in the moral martial realm, he was already comparable to the 2nd level of the spirit martial realm. Plus, he had many tricks up his sleeve. Let alone the 3rd level of the spirit martial realm, he could even fight against the 4th level of the spirit martial realm. Moreover, he still had 2 breakthrough-level Dawn in his hands. These 2 Dawn were worth nearly 10 burning blood Dawn each. It was enough for him to directly break through to the 2nd level of the spirit martial realm. Long Chen didn't care about the 3 cities tournament. His real goal was the immortal path in a year. Only by truly entering the 5 big sects would he be able to obtain countless resources. He would soar to the sky and quickly restore his dominator cultivation. However, just as the Long clan was about to leave, a cold shout came from behind them, "Wait!" The Long clan's people paused. They saw 100 black armored soldiers blocking their way. At the same time, Xia Changfeng, who was wearing silver armor, slowly walked forward. He stared at Long Tianqing and said, "It seems like you didn't take my words to heart. Do you know how much you have to pay for this trash, young master?" Xia Changfeng was the son of the Zhenyuan general. No matter if it was status or cultivation, he was far superior to the people of Iron Mountain City. When the Long clan's people saw him, their faces immediately turned pale. Long Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. This guy was worthy of being from the imperial capital. He was clearly only 25 years old, but he was already at the 5th level of the spirit martial realm. It seemed that the crown prince really valued Li Yuanwu. Without waiting for Long Tianqing to speak, Long Chen walked forward. He stared at Xia Changfeng and said, "My Long clan's matters are not for you to interfere. Don't tell me you want to represent the Empire's strength to interfere with the Three Cities tournament and even the distribution of resources by the 5 big sects? N. Chi La." Xia Changfeng's cold face was suddenly covered with frost. He coldly snorted and was about to pull out his sword. At this time, Li Yuanwu waved his hand and said, "Changfeng, don't be impulsive. This guy can only use his mouth. As for the Long clan, you don't need to do anything. Let's go. You're just a trash. When I first stepped into the 6th level of the Mortal Martial Realm and left Iron Mountain City, you were only at the 1st level of the Mortal Martial Realm. Now I'm at the Spirit Martial Realm and you're still a trash." Li Yuanwu's face was arrogant. His words were full of disdain. He didn't even look at him. He let the 100 black armored soldiers block the Long clan and walked in front. The Long clan actually dares to provoke the Li clan. They really don't know when to stop. That Long Chen is rumored to have practiced some unorthodox methods. But how can he be compared with Li Yuanwu? He can only rely on his mouth to talk nonsense. Let's go. In the Three Cities tournament, I think it would be good if he could enter the top 1 or 200. Many people around who were watching the show were also chattering. They secretly thought that how could Long Chen, a famous trash, be compared with Li Yuanwu? Since Li Yuanwu returned, his reputation was like the sun in the sky. Even the Lin clan and the Gu clan made concessions. Only the Long clan's relationship with him was getting worse and worse. "Father, let's go. Let's go to the tournament to camp and rest. I also want to prepare for tomorrow's tournament. As for other things, you don't have to worry about it. Leave it all to me." Long Chen looked at the backs of Li Yuanwu and the other Li clan members and said in a deep voice. There was even a flash of killing intent in his eyes. Finally, it was time for the Three Cities tournament. In his previous life, after the Three Cities tournament, the Long clan walked step by step on the road to extinction. And in this life, he wanted everything to end here. After the Three Cities tournament, he wanted the Long clan to control Iron Mountain City alone and stand at the top of the many clans in the Three Cities. Chapter 28. Chapter 28. Step into the spiritual martial force. The plains to the north of the city were 10,000 meters in length and breadth. It was where Iron Mountain City, Blood Red City, and Fierce Tiger City intersected. It was also the location of the Three Cities competition. At this moment, many large flags had been set up in all directions on the plain. The major clans had found a place to set up camp. There was only a high platform on a mountain peak in the east, which was enough to overlook the 6 battle platforms in the center. As the sky gradually darkened, torches were lit one after another. A total of 12 families from the Three Cities had finally arrived. Today was the last day for them to adjust themselves. There were even many people who were sharpening their weapons at the last moment and swallowing medicinal pills to cultivate. At that moment, Long Chen was staying in one of the barracks of the Long family. He threw 2 breakthrough pills into his mouth. Today, he would reach the 2nd level of the Ling martial realm. Originally, with his current cultivation, he was 80 to 90% confident that he would win the grand competition of the Three Cities. However, according to the memory of his previous life, once the grand competition of the Three Cities ended and the referees left, the Li family launched a surprise attack on the Long family. Although the Li family's Li Su and Li Tian were already dead, and things might change a little, there was an even more powerful Li Yuanwu. If things continued to develop like this, he would make the Li family pay an unprecedented price. At the same time, on the 100-meter grandstand, 3 members of the imperial capital were ordered to supervise the grand competition of the Three Cities. These 3 members would appear in every grand competition of the Three Cities under the Blue Dragon Empire in order to ensure the fairness of the competition. One of them was a military general, and the other was a civil general. In order to ensure that the empire did not pocket the profits, there would be a third party, the Alchemist Guild, that was to say, Every grand competition of the 3 cities would be supervised by an alchemist. The vigorous old man among the 3 had a red face. He was an old general of the empire who had retired. Because his place of retirement was not far from Iron Mountain City and other mountain cities, he was appointed as the host of this place. As for the pale-faced scholar, he came from the imperial capital. He was a 7th-rank official and his name was Shuabufan. However, these 3 people, each with their own strengths, were gathered together. Their eyes were fixed on the pill in the pale-faced, beardless Elder Su's hand. After looking at it for a while, the red-faced old general asked doubtfully, "Brother Su, is it really as magical as you said? After looking at it for half a day, isn't it just a chi-gathering pill? There's even a crack on it, it's really unsightly." Although Xingjun had taken off his armor and returned to the fields, he was still vigorous despite his age. His words were still straightforward. The alchemist known as Elder Su was not angered by his words. Instead, he smiled and said, "Elder Zheng was born in the military, so it's fine as long as there are medicinal pills to eat. However, in my opinion, this medicinal pill is extremely exquisite, as if it's the work of nature." "Oh?" Elder Su is the representative of the Alchemist Guild in the Fire Cloud County, and he has already reached the Grandmaster realm in alchemy. Is this strange-looking pill really that rare? Compared to the old General Xingjun, Shuabufan, the young scholar, spoke much more gently and politely. Elder Su's beardless old man shook his head and said, "This chi-gathering pill is refined from green spirit grass. There's nothing special about it. But if I'm not wrong, this chi-gathering pill only used 2 green spirit grass, and it didn't even reach 2. And its absorption effect is several times higher than that of ordinary chi-gathering pills. Even its medicinal efficacy is 2 levels higher." Elder Su's words were filled with shock, and even a trace of yearning. Even though the 2 of them were not alchemists, they could still hear how amazing it was. Just the absorption effect being several times higher was incredible. In other words, a chi-gathering pill that would normally take 8 hours to absorb would now only take 2 hours. It must be known that the chi-gathering pill was the most commonly used medicinal pill for martial artists. This kind of efficiency was already terrifying, however, the 2 of them still did not understand medicinal pills. In fact, what surprised Elder Su the most was that the medicinal efficacy was 2 levels higher. The chi-gathering pill could be refined with any spiritual medicine, but while removing impurities, many medicinal properties would also be lost. Even so, there would still be many impurities in the chi-gathering pill every moment. This would cause the chi-gathering pill to be unable to be taken for a long period of time. The chi-gathering pill, the most common medicinal pill, had been refined by countless people. Its medicinal properties and impurities were almost impossible to change. But now, this rule might have been broken, until a beautiful woman ran over. The woman was only 15 or 16 years old. She was otherworldly, and her eyes were like a stream on a snowy mountain. She had an indescribable aura of green spirit. She wore a somewhat serious red and black robe. The loose robe was unable to conceal her proud posture, but it made her look a bit comical. But aside from Elder Su, when the other 2 saw the 2 pill cauldron-like badges on the woman's chest, they immediately revealed shocked expressions. The pill cauldron badge was a badge that had been personally tested by the Alchemist Guild. Just this badge alone was enough to make the great empires treat it with great hospitality. Alchemist Su, could this be the daughter of the Alchemist Guild's Black Dragon Empire branch president, Louis Yi? Veteran General Xingjun's eyes lit up as he asked. This is the Black Dragon Empire's rare alchemy talent that only appears once in 100 years. Seeing you today, you really are a dragon among men, Alchemist Su nodded, seemingly unwilling to speak in detail. Instead, he was quite interested in Louis Yi's words. Elder Su, I heard that the mountain bandit stole these pills from a disciple of the Gu clan, and the disciple of the Gu clan bought them for 10 taels of silver each from the Oceanic Sky Trading Company. The woman's laughter was as clear and melodious as a bell, as if she was faintly looking forward to it. Oceanic Sky Trading Company? Aren't they also here now? They're in the outermost camp in the west. When the first round of the competition ends tomorrow, you and I will go pay them a visit. We'll definitely benefit a lot. Alchemist Sue seemed to have a rather high evaluation of the pill refiner. Oceanic Sky Trading Company? It's said that the Lin clan has an alchemist from the imperial capital who has been temporarily staying in the Oceanic Sky Trading Company. It should be him. When the competition ends tomorrow, we'll go take a look together. Although Elder Sue was somewhat looking forward to it, he still agreed. In his heart, he secretly thought that the Black Dragon Empire actually had such an alchemist, and he actually didn't know about it. Bang bang. Just as the three of them were about to leave, two faint muffled sounds came out. The old General Xingjun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and look at the Long clan's camp from afar. Elder Zheng, what's wrong? This sound is probably someone's pot and bowl being knocked over. Don't worry about it. Chua Bufan waved his feather fan and said casually. The old general shook his head and said rather solemnly, with my many years of experience, someone from the Long clan has stepped into the spiritual martial force, and has broken through 2 stages in a row. Breaking through 2 stages in a row, that is to say, from the ordinary martial realm directly to the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm? Could it be that you heard wrong? Chua Bufan's expression was strange, as if he didn't believe it at all. Even Elder Su shook his head slightly, as if he felt that these words were too unbelievable. Chapter 29. Don't fight to the death. Inside the Long family's tent, Long Chen's eyes flashed and he let out a sigh of relief. The Primal Chaos Golden Code has a total of 36 major acupoints to open. That is to say, after reaching the profound stage of the spiritual martial realm, one can have the strength of 36 dragon elephants. That is to say, a single fist has the strength of 36,000 jin. If one can reach the profound stage of the Primal Chaos Golden Code, both internal strength and physical strength will be 4 times that of an ordinary person at the peak of the spiritual martial realm. At that time, one's physical strength will be enough to kill a spirit-severing stage expert. Long Chen muttered to himself. His words were full of shock. Every time an expert in the spiritual martial realm opens a major acupoint, they can condense a portion of internal strength. The strength of a single fist will increase by 1,000 jin. This internal strength is like a stream of spiritual power, very strange. There's also a mysterious area in my sea of consciousness. As I step into the spiritual martial realm, it has begun to loosen. It seems that I can only see it when I reach the spirit-severing stage. After his rebirth, Long Chen's biggest change was his sea of consciousness. His sea of consciousness still had the ability to dominate, but it lost many of its abilities and gained a mysterious area. Just as Long Chen was about to continue exploring, there was a squeaking noise in front of the Long family's camp. Sir, you must be mistaken. This tent belongs to the Long family's young master. He is the infamous trash of the Long family. Even if he can cultivate to the 3rd level of the moral martial realm, it is probably his limit. How can he reach the spiritual martial realm? When the Gu family's patriarch passed by, he coincidentally met the person sent by Elder Zheng and sneered. Hearing this, the attendant immediately lost interest and turned to leave. He reported to Elder Zheng, that person is the Long family's young master. It is said that he is at the bottom of the younger generation in Iron Mountain City. His highest cultivation is only at the 3rd level of the moral martial realm. Elder Zheng was suddenly surprised. His face turned red and he said awkwardly, maybe someone else in his family broke through. Let's go, Elder Zheng. We still have to host the large competition tomorrow. When Long Chen walked out of the tent, Qing Xian immediately greeted him and said, Young master, they actually called you trash. They will definitely regret it tomorrow. It's just a false reputation. The word trash has long been deeply ingrained in their hearts. How could it be so easy to get rid of it? However, from tomorrow onwards, the sky of Iron Mountain City will change. Long Chen cast his gaze towards the Li family from afar, and a chill ran through his heart. Although he was only at the 1st level of the spirit martial realm, he had opened up 2 major acupoints and could evolve the power of 2 dragon elephants. In addition, he had formed 24 martial veins in the mortal martial realm. His true fighting strength was comparable to the 4th level of the combat spirit martial realm. Even though his real strength was still a little lower than level 5 of the spiritual martial realm, with the advantage of various martial arts techniques, he was enough to sweep the Iron Mountain City's spiritual martial realm, which was not weaker than any level 6 languaging. The so-called grand competition of the 3 cities had already become a child's game and was no longer in his eyes. The next morning, as soon as the cold sunlight appeared, all the major clans had already gathered at the battle stage. War General Elder Zheng, Civil General Zhuo Bufan, and Alchemist Elder Su. The 3 hosts were also well-known figures in the Iron Mountain City and the other 2 cities. The 3 of them stood on the high platform, looking rather dignified. 12 clans, 6 battle stages. Each clan had a total of 20 participants, a total of 240 people. The rules of today's arena competition are the same. It's still an elimination system. On the first day, there will be 20 matches in each arena before noon, and 10 matches after noon. Zhuo Bufan took a step forward and said politely. In other words, 120 people would be eliminated on the first day alone in the morning, and another 60 people would be eliminated in the afternoon. The next 2 days would be the real battlefield for the strongest of the younger generation of the major clans. Seeing that the disciples of the various clans were all rubbing their fists and palms, Alchemist Elder Su walked forward with a smile and said, "For this grand competition of the 3 cities, the resources below have been written on the bulletin boards beside the battle stages. There's also the list of the major clans' battles today." As Elder Su's voice fell, everyone turned their eyes to the bulletin boards in front of the 6 battle stages in the center. A moment later, the crowd was in an uproar. Because the resources this time were all medicinal pills. It should be known that under normal circumstances, there were very few medicinal pills in the 3 cities, and very few people could refine them. Therefore, even if the clans obtained the medicinal pills, they would take them directly. In this way, not only could the medicinal effects not be fully exerted, but there might also be many impurities left in the body after taking them for a long time. What? The clans with disciples in the top 10 will get 200 spirit charging pills for each place. 200 spirit charging pills are enough to give birth to a divine transformation realm expert. In other words, this competition will completely widen the gap between the various clans, and it will not change for at least the next 10 years. Look, the top 3 can all follow the referees into the imperial capital and become disciples of the Royal Academy. The first place can even be summoned by the Imperial Preceptor and receive a wind-chanting purple vein sword. The entire clan will be treated as a meritorious clan of the Empire for a year. Hiss! The clans below the stage gasped. Whether it was the elders or the disciples, even the eyes of the clans were bloodshot and full of excitement. The Royal Academy. That was the school for countless young nobles in the imperial capital. It had countless resources, cultivation methods, martial arts, and would even be accepted by the Empire to establish military merits. The treatment of a meritorious clan. That was 300,000 taels of silver and 50 energy-gathering pills per month for 12 consecutive months. For a moment, even Li Yuanwu's expression changed drastically. This kind of reward was far better than the previous grand competition of the 3 cities. It could be said to be heaven-defying. Even he could not help but be excited. The wind-chanting purple vein sword, the treatment of a meritorious clan, and a disciple of the Royal Academy. If I have these, I will be able to establish myself even in the imperial capital. Li Yuanwu's face was flushed with excitement. Longchen clearly knew that this year's grand competition of the 3 cities was to unify the major cities of the Black Dragon Empire. Every 3 cities would have a leader, and the meritorious clans would control them to strengthen the empire's control. In his previous life, it was precisely because of this that the Li clan hastened the destruction of the Long clan. In this way, as long as I get first place, the Long clan will become the overlord of the 3 cities and will have no worries for at least 20 years. Longchen muttered to himself. At the same time, the surrounding people could not help but step onto the stage according to the names and numbers on the bulletin board. First stage, Iron Mountain Cities Lian vs Blood Red Cities Zhou Tian. Second stage, Iron Mountain Cities Gujun vs Iron Mountain Cities Longbu. Third stage, Blood Red Cities Lianqing vs Blood Red Cities Weigou. Fourth stage, Fierce Tiger Cities Sunwan vs Fierce Tiger Cities Chengxian. There were 6 stages, and each of the 12 clans would send out one person in the first round. Every round, 6 people would be eliminated. After 20 rounds, 120 people would be eliminated. It could be said to be cruel. The competition had not yet started, but there were endless discussions below the stage. They were already guessing the outcome. Chapter 30. Chapter 30. Kneel down and beg for mercy. Longbu was rather puzzled by Long Chen's words, but he still nodded in agreement. The Long family kept everything about Long Chen a secret. Although the outside world still didn't know about Long Chen's strength, the younger generation of the Long family had long since followed Long Chen's lead and revered him. After Longbu went on stage, Gu Jun from the Gu family suddenly sneered and said in a deep voice, "I didn't expect that there would be someone from the Long family who can go on stage. However, you, a guy who just stepped into the 4th level of the moral martial realm, wanna fight with me? Cut the crap, let's fight." Although Longbu shouted this, he thought of Long Chen's words and kept a lookout. When Gu Jun saw that it was someone from the Long family, his eyes were filled with murderous intent. His body swayed, and the long sword in his hand turned into streaks of cold radiance that slashed towards Longbu. The sound of air being sliced apart could be heard. Longbu was not slow, and he blocked with his sword. Puchi! However, he immediately fell to the ground. Gu Jun's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He was about to slash his saber at Gu Jun's head. But before he could finish, he heard Longbu shout, "I admit defeat." Before Gu Jun could make a second move, he heard Longbu admitting defeat. He could only snort coldly and say, "The Long clan is indeed weak. You are just lucky in the grand competition of the 3 cities." Longbu was covered in cold sweat. He glanced at Long Chen gratefully. The grand competition of the 3 cities did not restrict life and death. As long as the other side did not admit defeat, they could continue to fight. If not for Long Chen's warning, he would have died in Gu Jun. I didn't expect Gu Jun to have reached the peak of the 4th level of the moral martial realm. Furthermore, he is so ruthless and wants to kill Longbu before he can react. Long Tianqing frowned and said in a deep voice. Long Chen nodded and murmured, "I'm afraid it's not just the Gu family. The Li family will definitely do the same. The 2 families obviously want to kill as many of our Long family's core disciples as possible in the grand competition of the 3 cities." Following Longbu's admission of defeat, the results of the other battle stages were also announced. Apart from the Long clan who lost to the Gu clan from the same city, all the other battle stages of the Iron Mountain Cities clan disciples actually ended in defeat. However, no one was surprised. After all, Iron Mountain City had always ranked last in the 3 cities competition. They were far inferior to Blood Red City and Fierce Tiger City. Most of the people who went up on stage in the first round were nameless people, so the crowd was not interested. They focused all their attention on the information on the bulletin board, wanting to see who would go up on stage in the second round. Wei Tsang is 22 years old and he's at the 2nd level of the spirit martial realm. He's one of the top 3 seeded contestants. Why am I so unlucky to have to face him? Blood Red Cities by Linger. Heavens! She had reached the spirit martial realm in the last grand competition of the 3 cities. Now a year has passed. I'd better admit defeat. I'm lucky, I'm so lucky. My opponent is actually that trash from the Long family. Long Chen's name was also in the 2nd round. He belonged to the 3rd battle stage. His opponent was a Blood Red Cities Wei clan disciple who was at the 4th level of the moral martial realm. As Long Chen stepped onto the 3rd battle stage, the other battle stages had already finished. The disciples who encountered Wei Tsang, Bai Linger, and Lin Feiyu all admitted defeat. They could only secretly curse their bad luck for encountering them on the first day. It's the Long family's young master. Among the major clans, only the Iron Mountain City's Long family's young master is participating in the Three Cities competition for the first time. I didn't expect Wei Qing's luck to be so good. Blood Red City's Wei Tsang casually glanced at Long Chen as he walked down the stage. It's that trash from the Long family. The Long family is one of the 4 major clans of Iron Mountain City, but they actually have such a trash young master. Everyone in the 3 cities knows about this. A Wei clan disciple also disdainfully said. Cousin Wei Qing is very respectful to the boss. If he is lucky enough to enter the top 100, he will definitely reward him. Not only did the Wei clan's people look down on Long Chen, but even the other clans were secretly thinking that this Wei clan's disciple was extremely lucky. After all, Long Chen's reputation as a trash was well known. Only Lin Feiyu, who walked down from the second battle stage, shook his head and laughed. Previously, Long Chen killed Li Su with a single punch in the Sea Sky Trading Company. That kind of strength wasn't something that a person called trash could achieve. Even Lin Feiyu was somewhat afraid of Long Chen. On the battle stage, the Wei clan disciple was extremely excited. He stared at Long Chen and said, I originally thought that I wouldn't be able to pass the first round. I didn't expect to meet you. I'm really lucky. Are you going to admit defeat or let me beat you until you kneel down and beg for mercy? Haha, the top 100 of the 3 cities competition would all receive some rewards. In other words, as long as he defeated Long Chen in the first round, he would be able to receive a few pills if he was lucky enough to be ranked behind in the second round. Long Chen stared at this person and said with a playful smile, it's better if you kneel down and beg for mercy, then don't blame me for being merciless. As the Wei clan disciple sneered, he suddenly pounced towards Long Chen. As his fists intertwined, his cultivation of the 4th level of the moral martial realm was revealed without a doubt. Wei clan's meteor punch. I think Long Chen won't even have the strength to admit defeat after this punch. Li clan's patriarch Li Kang, who was not far from Long Tianqing, sneered. Long Tianqing didn't even look at him and said indifferently, be careful not to cut your tongue. Just as Long Tianqing's voice fell, the Wei clan disciple on the stage flew out. His mouth was full of blood, his teeth were scattered, and a huge shoe print was particularly clear on his face. Are you going to kneel down and beg for mercy, or do you want me to beat you until you beg for mercy? Long Chen slowly walked forward and said indifferently. The Wei clan disciple's eyes were dull, as if he couldn't believe that he had just been kicked in the face by Long Chen. He didn't even see it clearly. Then, as if he was unwilling to give up, he rushed out again. Boom! Another shoe print appeared on his face, and his whole body was heavily trampled on the ground. Woo-woo! At this moment, he wanted to admit defeat, but he couldn't speak. His mouth was full of blood. The surrounding people who were originally ridiculing Long Chen suddenly felt as if a fishbone was stuck in their throats. They stared strangely at the scene on the stage. Wei Tsang's face was gloomy, and he said to Long Chen in a deep voice, Your Excellency, don't be too greedy. Kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy was what he said himself. Long Chen didn't comment. The Wei clan disciple was beaten dizzy by Long Chen. At this moment, how could he not understand that he wasn't lucky, but kicked an iron plate? He quickly knelt on the ground and kowtowed. At this moment, he couldn't make a sound. Even if Long Chen killed him, it would be in vain. Seeing this person begging for mercy, Long Chen kicked him off the stage, but didn't take his life. Chapter 31. Strange Qi gathering pill. In the blink of an eye, Long Chen had defeated the Wei family's 4th level moral martial realm Wei Qing. I didn't expect that the Long family's trash could actually defeat the 4th level moral martial realm Wei Qing. Wei Qing's strength was at the bottom of the tournament. If it weren't for Wei Tsang, he probably wouldn't have had the chance to participate. Losing is nothing, but offending Wei Tsang is not a wise thing to do. That Long Chen is at most at the peak of the 4th level of the moral martial realm. I don't know how many spirit herbs he used to achieve this. He definitely won't be able to last through the next round. While everyone was discussing, Wei Tsang left the Wei family's camp and slowly walked towards Long Chen. He said condescendingly, "You better pray you don't meet me in the next round. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to surrender." After he finished speaking, Wei Tsang directly left. When he passed by Li Yuanwu, he couldn't help but slightly frown. No one knew what he was thinking. Li Yuanwu closed his eyes from beginning to end. It was as if he didn't put anyone in his eyes. Next, the third round of the tournament began. Time flew by and in the blink of an eye, it was noon. 20 rounds of tournament, 6 stages. In just one morning, many of the younger generation's experts stood out. There were even many who won without fighting. Among them, Li Yuanwu was the leader. He killed a 6th-level moral martial realm expert with a single punch. Everyone trembled in fear. Then came Wei Tsang, the Bai family's Bai Ling, and the other strong experts of the younger generation. They were already in their 20s and were almost certain to reach the top 10 of this tournament. The first round is over. Out of the remaining 120 people, 8 have died. Hearing this news, the Long family's faces were like dark clouds. Long Chen couldn't help but slightly frown. Among the 8 people, 3 of them were Long family disciples. One of them died at the hands of a 24-year-old 9th-level moral martial realm expert from the Li family. The other 2 died at the hands of the Wei family's Wei Tsang. Long Chen had warned the 3 of them before they stepped onto the stage. Unfortunately, they were still unwilling to admit defeat. Who would have thought that the 2 of them would directly kill them, not giving them a chance to surrender? Especially the last Long family youth. He had immediately chosen to surrender, but was still killed by Wei Tsang's fist. All of a sudden, the various large clans looked at the Long clan in amusement. Very soon, the Long clan became the target of public criticism. They were targeted by the Li clan, Gu clan, and Wei clan. After 4 hours of rest, there would be another round of battles in the afternoon. In these 4 hours, the younger generation of the Long family were all trembling in fear. After all, due to the uneven distribution of resources in the Purple Mist Mountain Seal, and the fact that the Long family's younger generation experts were already over 25 years old and could not participate in the competition, the younger generation of the Long family was not as good as the other 3 families. If the Wei clan, Gu clan, and Li clan all attacked at the same time, there would definitely be many casualties. All of a sudden, everyone in the Long family was in a state of panic. At this moment, Long Chen walked to Long Tianqing's side and whispered into his ear, "Father, tell all of the Long family's disciples to forfeit tomorrow." "What?" Long Tianqing cried out involuntarily, "Chen, do you know what it means to forfeit?" "If they all forfeit, then at least someone has to enter the top 3 to protect the Long family's position." Long Tianqing in the Purple Mist Mountain Seal had already made the Long family fall behind step by step. If the Long family also forfeited in the 3 cities competition, then the Long family would be removed from the Iron Mountain City's 4 great clans in less than 2 years. Long Chen said in a deep voice, "I have the confidence to win first place in the 3 cities competition." Dang dang, when Long Tianqing heard Long Chen's words, he could not help but be shocked. He took half a step back and immediately shook his head with a wry smile. "Chen, although your battle strength is not weak and you can definitely enter the top 10, it will be extremely difficult to win first place. After all, you are only 15 years old." Although Long Tianqing knew that Long Chen's strength was tyrannical and could defeat Long Haotian, who was at the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm, there were many experts of the younger generation in front of him who had reached the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm or even higher. They were all 23 or 24 years old. Their martial skills and the use of inner strength in the spiritual martial realm were not comparable to Long Chen. "Father, do you trust me?" Long Chen's right hand suddenly fell on Long Tianqing's arm, and then a vast qi came out. "If I don't care about anything, my cultivation right now is enough to destroy the Li family." Long Chen's words made Long Tianqing's body tremble, especially the power coming from his arm. Such a terrifying qi was not weaker than him. How could he be so strong? A few days ago, he had not broken through to the moral martial realm, but now his strength was comparable to the 4th or 5th level of the spiritual martial realm. "Alright, I'll go crazy with you." Long Chen nodded with a smile after hearing Long Tianqing's reply. Just as he was about to turn around, he heard a familiar voice from afar, "Long time no see." It turned out that Lin Feiyu and Ouyang Yanghong were accompanying Alchemist Lu from afar. Seeing them clearly, Long Chen cupped his fist and smiled. "Last time, I left in a hurry and did not apologize to Senior Ouyang. I used the alchemy room for nothing and even broke a furnace." Speaking of this, Ouyang Yanghong suddenly pretended to be angry and said, "You brat, it's fine if you just blindly made pills, but you also broke my furnace. For you, I lost a month's salary." Hearing this, Long Chen smiled helplessly, but did not explain. The few of them chatted for a while and then walked towards Alchemist Su and the other 2 judges. Lin Feiyu even turned around and shouted at Long Chen with a fighting spirit, "If I meet you on the fighting stage, I will not show any mercy." Long Chen liked Lin Feiyu's character, and secretly thought that if he met him on the fighting stage, there was no harm in giving him some pointers. On the other side, the elders of the Long family were in an uproar. Long Tianqing was stubborn and actually made all the disciples of the Long family give up on the competition, leaving only Long Chen. Countless elders of the Long family sighed, but there was nothing they could say. They only thought that this grand competition of the 3 cities was the beginning of the Long family's decline. Lin Feiyu and the other 2 came to the stands. After seeing Alchemist Su, Elder Zheng, and the other 2, they immediately showed a respectful expression. These 3 people's identities were not ordinary. Even in the imperial capital, they were not low. "I didn't expect our alchemist guild to have such a rare talent like Alchemist Lu. Seeing you today, you really can't judge a book by its cover." Elder Su looked at Alchemist Lu with surprise. Alchemist Lu's face was full of confusion, and he quickly returned the greeting. Although he was a spirit-level alchemist, compared to Elder Su in front of him, he was still too far away. Ouyang Yanghong smiled and said, "Alchemist Lu often mentioned you 2 elders to me. He said many times that since he came to Iron Mountain City, he should pay you 2 a visit so that this trip was not in vain. Aya, you people, you just like to be polite and long-winded. Stop wasting time. Let me ask you, did you sell some chi-gathering pills at the Sea Sky Trading Company a while ago?" Elder Zheng, who was on the side, was somewhat impatient, and his fiery temper was obvious. Behind the 2 of them, Lu Yi, who was wearing a loose robe, also looked at Alchemist Lu with anticipation on her beautiful face. Chapter 32. The entire clan withdraws. Ouyang Yanghong didn't expect Alchemist Lu to have such influence. Of the 3 people in front of him, one was the representative of the Alchemist Association branch, and the other was a retired veteran. However, what shocked him the most was Lu Yi behind them. Such a young spirit rank alchemist, he could only be that once-in-a-century alchemist. "I did sell some chi-gathering pills to the Oceanic Sky Trading Company, but they were all small things that couldn't catch Alchemist Su's eye," Alchemist Lu said modestly. Even a mortal rank alchemist could easily refine chi-gathering pills, and their effects were basically the same. Why did the 4 of them care so much about it? Their words made Alchemist Lu quite confused. Before Alchemist Su could speak, Lu Yi blinked her big bright eyes and walked over. She pulled on Alchemist Lu's sleeve and said, "Uncle Lu, why don't you teach me how to refine pills? I want those chi-gathering pills." Alchemist Lu looked at the pill cauldron badge on Lu Yi's chest and couldn't help but frown. He smiled bitterly and said, "How could this old man be qualified to be your teacher? This must be the president's daughter, the once-in-a-century alchemy fanatic, right? Father said before, the one who has reached the top is the teacher. Uncle Lu's chi-gathering pill can't be found a second person in the entire Azure Dragon Empire who can refine it. Please don't be stingy with your guidance." Lu Yi's beautiful face made people unable to refuse. However, Alchemist Lu was even more confused. His chi-gathering pills were so powerful and unique. However, even if he had twice the courage, he wouldn't dare to accept Lu Yi as his teacher. Not to mention that Lu Yi was the daughter of the Alchemist Association's president. Just the fact that she was a spirit rank alchemist at the age of 15 was something he couldn't ignore. Comparisons were odious. He was almost 60 years old before he became a spirit rank alchemist. After thinking about it, Alchemist Lu couldn't help but ask, "Are you looking for the wrong person? My chi-gathering pills are really nothing special." As he spoke, he waved his hand and a light blue chi-gathering pill appeared in his hand. Alchemist Su hurriedly walked forward, but immediately frowned and said, "It really isn't this pill. Does Oceanic Sky Trading Company have any spirit rank alchemists? Or Grandmaster rank alchemists?" Yanghong smiled bitterly and said, "Not to mention Grandmaster level alchemists, there's only one spirit level alchemist, Alchemist Lu." Yanghong couldn't help but secretly think that this wasn't the imperial capital. Where would a Grandmaster alchemist come from? Even if there was one, they wouldn't be able to afford it. "Didn't this medicinal pill come from your Ocean Sky auction house?" Elder Su asked doubtfully. As he spoke, he took out a black pill that looked like a charcoal ball. There was a crack on it, and it looked as if it would split open at any moment. Ah! Ha! Just as he took out the pill, Yanghong and Alchemist Lu both cried out in shock. This time, it was Alchemist Su and the others' turn to be puzzled. He asked, "What? You two know who refined this medicinal pill? Quick, bring me to him. He wants to take him as her master and refine this cracked pill." Although Lu Yi was only 15 years old, her voluptuous figure was probably not inferior to that of an adult woman. Her loose robe and pure intelligence made her seem energetic. "Were you really talking about this medicinal pill just now?" Yanghong couldn't help but confirm again. "Wasn't this medicinal pill created by Long Chen's cauldron explosion? He sold it at a super low price of 10 taels of silver per pill. Was this medicinal pill really as incredible as Alchemist Su said? But how old was Long Chen? He was only 15 years old. Could it be that Iron Mountain City had produced another rare pill Dao talent that was hard to come by in 100 years? Seeing Elder Su nod, Alchemist Lu and Yanghong looked at each other and smiled bitterly. That person is not far from the spectator stands. He is the young master of the Long family, plop. Lin Feiyu, who was standing at the side, almost fell off the spectator stands. They were talking about some Grandmaster-level alchemist, but it turned out that they were looking for Long Chen. The young master of the Long family? Isn't he a well-known trash in Iron Mountain City? At this time, the red-faced Elder Zheng asked in confusion. Yesterday, he felt that the person who broke through repeatedly was the young master of the Long family. Now, it seemed that he might not have heard wrongly. "Everyone, please calm down. Maybe he didn't refine this medicinal pill, but he got it from someone else. The second round of the competition is about to begin. If you still have questions, we will call him over after the competition is over." Chua Bufan, who had been silent all this time, reminded them. Everyone nodded. Seeing that the competition was about to begin, Lin Feiyu took the lead to cup his fists and walk down the spectator stands. Then, Alchemist Lu and Yanghong also walked down the spectator stands with strange expressions. It is said that the young master of the Long family is only 15 or 16 years old. I'm afraid there is a mistake. How can he refine such a medicinal pill at such a young age, and in a place like Iron Mountain City? Chua Bufan glanced at the Long family's camp from afar. "I don't like the words of scholars like you. Look at Yi. She is just a 15-year-old spirit-level alchemist." Elder Zheng snorted. Chua Bufan was speechless for a moment. After a small interlude, the second round of the competition began. But soon, an elder of the Long family walked up the stage respectfully and said, "Seniors, my Long family wants to withdraw from this grand competition of the 3 cities, leaving only one disciple to participate." Withdraw from the grand competition of the 3 cities? The 3 of them were stunned. The grand competition of the 3 cities was related to the rise and fall of the major families, as well as their resources and status. They had never heard of a family withdrawing from the grand competition of the 3 cities. "Yes, my Long family is willing to withdraw from the grand competition of the 3 cities, leaving only young Master Long Chen." the elder's face was extremely ugly, as if he had made a great decision. Although the three of them were curious, they still nodded. However, they also had a lot of interest in this young master of the Long family. Was that medicinal pill refined by the young master of the Long family, who was called Trash? Was he really another genius in alchemy? Was it true that he broke through 2 spiritual martial realms yesterday? Today, the Long family had all withdrawn, so why was he left alone? The elder of the Long family left, and the three of them discussed for a while. Chua Bufan walked up to them and announced loudly, "The Long family has all withdrawn from the grand competition of the 3 cities, leaving only one person to participate. Therefore, all the opponents on the list who are disciples of the Long family can directly advance to the next round and compete tomorrow." What, the Long family withdrew from the grand competition of the 3 cities? Is he crazy? What do you mean crazy? They have no other choice. If they continue to fight, I'm afraid that at least 10 of the top 20 people in the younger generation of the Long family will die. At that time, what's the use of the Long family's resources? That's right. Li Yuanwu of the Li family, Wei Tsang of the Wei family, and Gu Tianhua of the Gu family. These 3 people's cultivations are all in the spiritual martial realm. If they meet the people of the Long family, they won't even have a chance to fight. I think 2 more of them will die in the second round alone. Why did Long Chen stay? Even if he defeated Wei Qing, how could he be a match for these people? Isn't he courting death? Not to mention these people, I'm afraid he can't even pass the second round. These people are fighting for the top 10 or even the top 3. Chapter 33. Meet 1, Kill 1. Afternoon, the scorching sun hung high in the sky. The glaring sunlight made everyone restless, and when Long Chen stepped onto the stage, the atmosphere became even more restless. Hissing sounds could be heard from all around. His opponent was actually a 7th-level mortal martial realm disciple of the Li family. Li Kuei was already at the 5th level of the mortal martial realm during the upper stage tournament, and now he has reached the 6th level of the mortal martial realm. This time, he will definitely advance to the top 60. After this tournament of the 3 cities, Li Kuei will reach the age of 25. After that, he will not be able to participate in the tournament again, but this time his luck is not bad, he actually met Long Chen. I don't know what the Long family is thinking, leaving Long Chen alone. Although he is not a waste now, at most he is at the 4th or 5th level of the mortal martial realm. How can he compete with the major families? I'm afraid Li Kuei is enough to kill him. The surrounding people were discussing animatedly, and the Li family disciples were sneering. Li Yuanwu looked at Long Chen from afar, narrowing his eyes, as if he did not put Long Chen in his eyes. Kill him. After a moment, Li Yuanwu stared at Li Kuei and said. The surrounding people suddenly shook their heads. The Li family was really targeting the Long family. No matter what, Long Chen was still the young master of the Long family, but Li Yuanwu did not hesitate to kill Li Kuei. The Li family head Li Kan looked at Long Chen from afar, his eyes were full of anger. Today, Long Chen's cultivation was enough to kill Li Tian in the training mountain range, and Li Su had also died trying to assassinate him. Now, he wished he could kill everyone in the Long family to accompany him in death. On the stage, Li Kuei stared at Long Chen and grinned. I didn't expect the young master of the Long family to die in my hands. I will take your life in 3 moves. Li Kuei's voice fell, and a long saber appeared in his right hand. Suddenly, the saber's shadow did not leave a single gap. He was afraid that Long Chen would surrender and escape, so his speed was extremely fast, and did not give him a chance to breathe. The snake shadow changed. Li Kuei was using the Li family's Mortal Tier 7th grade saber art. His saber art was wide open, but in reality, it was very strange. The saber shadows were like venomous snakes that hung upside down and hissed. This kind of saber technique was equivalent to the 7th level of the mortal martial realm. Apart from the younger generation of the major clans who were about to reach the age of 20 and above, most likely people like Long Chen would only be killed in a second. Wei Tsang shook his head and said, It's a pity that the Li family beat us to it. Otherwise, I would definitely make this person beg for death. No matter what, he wouldn't be able to utter the word surrender. Behind Wei Cang, Wei Qing's face was swollen. He glared at Long Chen with eyes full of resentment and said fiercely, dying like this is too easy for him. He actually dodged it. However, in the next moment, everyone cried out in surprise. Long Chen actually did not move in the slightest under the attack. He did not care about the shadow of the blade, but it did not hurt him at all. Is this considered a blade technique? Long Chen asked. Li Kuei only felt a burning sensation on his face, and his expression immediately became gloomy. He roared again, and his power was even stronger than before. Snake Shadow Encirclement. This time, he actually chopped more than 10 times. Long Chen's body was instantly surrounded by a strange shadow of a blade. The surrounding people cried out in surprise. This kind of saber technique was practiced to the Deshang level. With this kind of saber technique, it was enough to contend with a 7th level of the moral martial realm. Everyone secretly thought that Long Chen was definitely going to die this time. There was no other thought. They secretly thought that if he had directly admitted defeat after dodging the first attack, he might have been able to save his life. What? However, this time, it was still greeted with a cry of surprise. Long Chen's body was like a rainbow, and in a few breaths' time, his steps were like a phantom. It was as if he was walking through 10,000 flowers without being touched by a single leaf. At this moment, Li Kuei's eyes were wide open. He only felt that his heart was suffocating with blood. His whole body's strength was unexpectedly unable to be used. His attack did not even touch the corner of Long Chen's clothes. 3 moves have passed, now it's my turn. Long Chen's pondering smile swept over. His right hand was like a blade, and he chopped down in a straight line. Bursts of wind were brought up, and the faint sound of wind and thunder could be heard. His palm chopped down, but it made Li Kuei's whole body freeze on the spot. He felt that this move had an indomitable and overbearing aura, which made his mind tremble. He was originally about to raise his long saber horizontally, but he abruptly avoided it. Chi-la. Blood splattered everywhere, and a head with a face full of panic flew out. Under that blade, he even lost the courage to raise his saber. Long Chen's body was like a swan goose as he retreated. There was not a single drop of blood on him, and he was extremely confident and at ease. The head dripping with blood, as if on purpose, directly fell into the crowd of the Li family. Many young disciples were scared out of their wits, and their complexions were deathly pale. How is this possible? The waist young master of the Long family actually beheaded Li Kuei, who was at the 6th level of the moral martial realm. With a single hand chop, he used the strength of his body to chop off the head. This Long Chen's understanding of saber techniques is actually so deep. Waist? This is really the biggest joke in Iron Mountain City. This person is only about 16 years old, but he actually has the strength to behead a 6th level of the moral martial realm. I'm afraid that he has at least reached the 7th level of the moral martial realm. Even in Iron Mountain City, he is enough to rank in the top 5. Waves of exclamations came from the various large families. Long Chen's hand chop had beheaded a 6th level of the moral martial realm. Whether it was speed or strength, it was vividly displayed. Only the Li family's head, Li Kang's complexion was as green as a ghost's face. His whole body's spirit martial realm aura could not help but fluctuate. The surrounding Li family disciples' complexions were as black as the bottom of a pot. Li Kuei, who was at the 6th level of the moral martial realm, had actually died. This was the first person from the Li family to die on the fighting stage. Moreover, he died at the hands of the Long family's waist young master. This was simply a ruthless slap to the faces of the major families of the 3 cities. Li Yuanwu looked at the head on the ground not far away. His eyes were unprecedentedly cold. Soon after, he stared at Long Chen on the fighting stage and said, "Good, very good, this is perhaps even more interesting. Killing a waist is really meaningless." Long Chen had not yet left the fighting stage. After hearing Li Yuanwu's words, he sneered and suddenly shouted, "Today, I will kill every member of the Li family, Wei family, and Gu family that I see. Hiss. Long Chen's words were like a heavy bomb being dropped in the crowd. It caused an uproar. He actually dared to provoke the three major families by himself. Wei Tsang, Li Yuanwu and Gu Tianhua, the three spirit martial realm martial artists who had the strength to fight for the top three positions, all had gloomy expressions. They secretly thought that Long Chen was ignorant. Even though he had some strength, age was not enough to make up for it. In their eyes, Long Chen was still not a match for them. His words were just arrogant words. On the spectator's stand, Elder Zheng and the other two referees stared at Long Chen in amazement. Elder Zheng, in particular, praised Long Chen's stunning saber strike. Chapter 34. Chapter 34. Li Yuan with the terrible Iron Mountain City's Li clan, Gu clan, and Blood Red City's Wei clan, these three great clans all viewed Long Chen as a thorn in their flesh. In the stands, Chua Bufan's comments about Long Chen made Elder Zheng furious. He shouted, "I find this guy very pleasing to the eye. Regardless of whether he will win or not, I like his arrogant temperament very much." Chua Bufan shook his head and smiled bitterly. He was helpless against this old general who was born in the army. However, he knew that although the old general in front of him had retired, his influence in the capital was not something that a scholar like him could compare with. Long Chen slowly walked down from the battle platform. Li Yuanwu and the other young generation of the three clans were all filled with murderous intent. Long Chen's words were undoubtedly a challenge to them in front of everyone. Li Feng wins. White Fox wins. Because of the Long clan's withdrawal, the second round was a lot faster. Very quickly, Li Yuanwu stepped onto the fighting stage. This time, his opponent was a seated contestant from the Sun clan of the Fierce Tiger City. His strength was at the peak of the second level of the spirit martial realm. As soon as the two people got on the stage, they caused a commotion. This was the first time today that two strong cultivators of the spirit martial realm met. With their strength, they were basically able to reach the top 10. But now that they met in the second round, one of them had to be eliminated. Sun Wu's face gradually darkened as he stared at Li Yuanwu, who was slowly making his way onto the stage. He had vaguely heard of Li Yuanwu's name in the past few days. To be able to become the apprentice brother of the Empire's first prince, one could see that Li Yuanwu possessed extraordinary talent and strength. However, he was truly unwilling to admit defeat just like that. Sun Wu is 23 years old. He got into the top 10 in the last major competition and has the cultivation of the spiritual martial realm. Now he is fighting with Li Yuanwu and there will be a wonderful battle. Both of them defeated their opponents with a single strike in the previous round. Their strength is enough to rank them in the top 10 among the over 200 participants. Everyone was discussing animatedly. They were looking forward to the battle between the two of them. Long Chen, who was standing outside the arena, couldn't help but take a few glances. On the battle stage, Li Yuanwu had just arrived in front of Sun Wu when he exuded a soul-stirring aura, which made Sun Wu somewhat apprehensive. After hesitating for a moment, Sun Wu said in a deep voice, "How about we stop when it's time?" Li Yuanwu stared at Sun Wu and said indifferently, "Admit defeat or die." Li Yuanwu's words were very indifferent, as if he didn't put Sun Wu in his eyes at all. His words were full of disdain. Sun Wu's face immediately drooped when he heard this. He snorted coldly and said, "Then I want to see just how much capital you, the Li family's eldest young master, have to be arrogant." Flaming Fire Claw. As Sun Wu roared, a weapon that looked like the sharp claws of a demonic beast appeared in his hands. When he waved it, flame shot out. The surrounding air was distorted, and air explosions continued. The temperature was not low. If this claw came into contact with him, it would probably burn his skin and flesh. However, Li Yuanwu sneered, "Petty tricks." His right hand clenched into a fist and directly blasted out. Instantly, boundless waves of air moved along with it, turning into a wall of fist wind that attacked. With this one move, Sun Wu was actually forced to retreat. Sun Wu's expression changed drastically, and his hands trembled uncontrollably. At this moment, he already regretted fighting with Li Yuanwu. With this punch, the winner was obvious. However, he knew that if he was distracted and gave up now, he was afraid that even if he admitted defeat, he would be directly killed. Explode! He gritted his teeth, and a trace of madness flashed across his face. The crimson claws suddenly shot out and collided with each other in the air. The sky was filled with fire, and there was an explosion. I admit defeat. Taking advantage of this time, he actually wanted to open his mouth and admit defeat. However, just as he finished speaking, a palm reached out from the exploding flames and directly pierced through his chest. Sun Wu looked at the palm in front of him unwillingly and fell to the ground. With 2 moves, he killed an expert at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. At this moment, everyone looked at Li Yuanwu with only awe. They secretly thought that the younger generation of the Li family in Iron Mountain City had an amazing talent. That's the 7th level of the spiritual martial technique, Shrinking Step. And the 9th level of the spiritual martial technique, Storm 7 Kill Fists. Sun Wu was actually directly crushed like this. Even the other seeded contestants absolutely can't do it. Now it seems that the first place of this grand competition is most likely to be the Li family. Li Yuanwu is worthy of being valued by the eldest prince's teacher. This combat strength is really terrifying. If the Li family of Iron Mountain City wins first place, they can dominate the 3 major cities and claim to be a family with outstanding achievements. In this way, the young master of the Long family just now is probably in big trouble. Everyone secretly thought that Li Yuanwu was terrifying, especially when almost all the martial techniques he cultivated had reached the peak of the spiritual martial technique, which was second only to the king martial technique. As they discussed, they couldn't help but look at Long Chen and even cast a pitiful look at him. At this moment, even Long Tianqing and the others couldn't help but feel their hearts tighten. Li Yuanwu was really too strong. With such combat strength, even Long Tianqing himself might not be a match for him. Li Yuanwu wiped the blood on his hands and looked at Long Chen from afar. He said indifferently, "Don't think about admitting defeat. After the grand competition of the 3 cities, there will be many rewards for the first place. There is no need for the Long family to exist in Iron Mountain City." For eyes met, and Long Chen's eyes slowly became cold. Although his rebirth had changed many things, the Li family's plot to destroy the Long family had never stopped. Now it was like fire and water, and the 2 could no longer coexist. Admit defeat? No, your words now make me feel that there is no need for the Li family to exist in Iron Mountain City. Long Chen retorted sarcastically and said coldly. The people around were in an uproar. They only thought that Long Chen had lost his mind. With the cultivation shown by Li Yuanwu, the first place was almost in the bag. According to the heaven-defying rewards of this grand competition of the 3 cities and the Long family's withdrawal from the grand competition of the 3 cities, it was not difficult to destroy the Long family. Although these words were a bit arrogant, it was completely possible. However, in their opinion, even if Long Chen had now washed away his reputation as a waste, how could he be compared with Li Yuanwu? He even wanted to destroy the Li family. This was simply a fool's dream. Humph, who do you think you are? I'm afraid you won't even be in the top 30 in tomorrow's discussion. How dare you talk about destroying my Li family? You just defeated a moral martial realm martial artist. Do you really think you are invincible? If you can reach the top 10, I will kneel down and kowtow to you. The people of the Long family are all cowards. I think you are just an idiot, ha! The people of the Li family sneered one by one. They were very disdainful of Long Chen's words. Even though Long Chen showed that he was not a waste, with Li Yuanwu, they did not put Long Chen in their eyes. Chapter 35. Facing Wei Sun in the afternoon, the weather gradually cooled down. Because the disciples of the Long family had withdrawn, the second round of the competition ended very quickly. In the end, there were only 60 people left from the 12 clans of the 3 cities. Tomorrow's battle would become a challenge according to the rules of the past. That is, 10 people were arranged on each of the 6 battle platforms. They could challenge at will, and the 10 people with the most wins would advance. On the other side, the battle had just ended. Elder Su, who was in the stands, could not help but want to ask Longchen about the pill. In his opinion, Longchen must have a great grandmaster-level alchemist behind him. Only in this way could he have such combat strength in a short period of time from a trash that everyone knew, and be able to refine such a unique chi-gathering pill. Let's wait until the grand competition of the 3 cities is completely over before we see this person. Otherwise, with the attention that the major clans are paying to him now, they will inevitably think that we are taking care of him. In the stands, Chua Bufan stopped Elder Su and Elder Jing from going to the Long family to ask Longchen about the pill. Elder Su and Elder Jing looked at each other and agreed. After all, Longchen represented the Long family and had formed a grudge with the Li family and the other 2 clans. However, they were quite curious about Longchen now. They even had the idea of saving Longchen if he was defeated. After a whole day of fighting, all the clans used all means to help the disciples who had advanced to make the final improvement. They tried their best to increase their strength, and even used many methods that they would not use in the past. After all, the rewards of this grand competition of the 3 cities were too tempting. Longchen was not idle. He held a small carved long knife in his hand and engraved on the Qinggang sword in his hand. A thumb-sized groove appeared on the handle. Longchen's forehead was covered in sweat. Until the next morning, his eyes could not help but become bloodshot. No wonder this formation is almost lost. It is far more declined than the path of alchemy. What is left behind are just some unorthodox things. Just a first-grade spirit rank inscription is enough to give me a headache. Longchen looked at the Qinggang sword in his hand. He was really surprised by the difficulty of the array. One had to know that his divine sense was at the level of a dominator in his previous life. Now, it took him an entire night to carve a 3rd-grade spirit rank inscription. Gravity inscription, harmonious spirit inscription, these 2 inscriptions directly raised the quality of the Cyan Ridge sword in his hand by several times. Immediately after, he placed the last top-grade spirit stone into the groove, and then put it away again. However, when the sun had just risen in the morning, everyone had already gathered around the fighting ring. The remaining 60 outstanding cultivators from various clans were also waiting to see who their opponents were. These 60 people were at least in the 7th level of the moral martial realm, and some were even in the spirit martial realm. None of them were weak. There were 10 people on each of the 6 fighting rings. Based on yesterday's observation, he had almost determined everyone's strength. Therefore, basically, the strongest cultivators who could enter the top 10 were all separated. This method was probably to prevent the top 3 cultivators from meeting in advance, which would appear unfair. Of course, Longchen was not in the plan. He was divided into 10 people on the first fighting ring. Coincidentally, the most popular person on this fighting ring was the Wei clan's Wei Tsang. On the 6 fighting rings, the 10 people could freely choose an opponent to challenge. The top 10 winners could advance to the next round. When the people of the Wei clan saw the list on the bulletin board, they suddenly burst into laughter. They were overjoyed, and some even directly shouted, "Longchen, don't you admit defeat? I want to see if you can kill my Wei clan's people one by one. With just him? If he meets Wei Tsang, let's see if he can still talk nonsense. I think he won't even have the chance to admit defeat." Wei Tsang also stared at Longchen from afar. The corner of his mouth revealed a sinister smile. He walked onto the stage, as if he couldn't wait to kill Longchen. On the viewing platform, Elder Zheng and the other 2 were stunned. Looking at the expressions of the various clans who were mourning for Longchen, they asked in confusion, "Chua Bufan, aren't you pushing him into the fire pit by dividing him like this? If Wei Tsang kills him, who are we going to ask about the matter of the medicinal pill?" 2 elders, think about it carefully. I am saving him. If he meets that guy from the Li clan, he will definitely die. Even if it is another spirit martial realm cultivator, his chances of survival are not high. According to the rumors, 2 months ago, he was still trash at the first level of the moral martial realm. Now, it is impossible for him to reach the moral martial realm. Although he has a grudge with Wei Tsang, the first stage is the closest to us. Elder Zheng can just use some methods to give him a chance to admit defeat and save his life. Xue Bufan's words made Elder Zheng and Elder Su agree. Thinking about Long Chen's quick defeat, it was not bad. At least, they could quickly ask him about the Dan. Moreover, Elder Zheng had saved his life, so he would definitely be grateful. At that time, it would not be rude to introduce him to his master. In many places, battles had already begun. On the other side, Long Chen had already stepped onto the stage. The moment he stepped onto the stage, Wei Tsang suddenly attacked. Obviously, he did not intend to give Long Chen the slightest chance to admit defeat. His attack was aimed at Long Chen's mouth. When you are unable to admit defeat, I will let you experience the feeling of not knowing whether you are dead or alive. Wei Tsang sternly shouted, his eyes filled with tyranny. On the viewing platform closest to the first stage, a faint light appeared in Elder Zheng's hand. He was prepared to give Long Chen a chance to admit defeat at any time. As long as he admitted defeat, he would save him as quickly as possible. However, in the next moment, his eyes narrowed and he said in surprise, this Long Chen has also reached the spirit martial realm. On the stage, 2 illusory dragonesque elephants appeared behind Long Chen for the first time. Bang! Long Chen and Wei Tsang's fists suddenly collided, causing a deafening roar. What? You are actually at the spirit martial realm. A surge of boundless power came from Wei Tsang's right hand, causing him to retreat more than 10 steps before he could stop himself. The surrounding people all revealed looks of disbelief. The entire Iron Mountain city was in an uproar. No one would have thought that the young master of the Long family, who was once called the trash of Iron Mountain City, would not only increase his cultivation, but also reach the first stage of the spirit martial realm. Moreover, he was at the second stage of the spirit martial realm with 2 illusory dragonesque elephants. He was only 15 or 16 years old, but he had such a cultivation at such an age. This was simply incomprehensible. Chapter 36. Top 10. Long Chen. Long Chen. Under the astonished and shocked gazes of the various large families, the young members of the Long clan began to shout. Long Chen couldn't help but feel his blood boil. Unfortunately, only Long Chen knew that if he wanted to enter the spirit-severing realm, he would need to gather the strength of 34 dracophants. In other words, if his spirit martial realm was calculated based on an ordinary person's dracophant shadow, he would reach the unprecedented 36th layer. Even though Long Chen had reached the Dominator realm in his previous life, he had never heard of anyone who could surpass 9 dracophants in the spirit martial realm. I didn't expect you to have already reached the second level of the spirit martial realm. I was careless this time. If this is what you have to boast shamelessly, then you can go die today. Wei Tsang stared at Long Chen. His right hand suddenly moved and a long blade with black patterns appeared. Family members like him naturally had a storage ring, but the space inside wasn't large. Immediately after, 2 dracophants began to condense behind Wei Tsang. A powerful aura suddenly spread out like a gust of wind. Impressively, he was also at the second level of the spirit martial realm. Black water pattern blade, tempered by heavy water. It can increase the user's strength by 500 gene and is indestructible. This blade is not bad. Elder Zheng, who was originally preparing to attack, casually said when he saw Wei Tsang take out the long blade. Wei Tsang was full of confidence. Long Chen's cultivation of the second level of the spirit martial realm didn't make him feel the slightest bit of fear. In fact, he had already reached the second level of the spirit martial realm during the large competition. The reason he hadn't broken through in the past year was because he had been honing a blade technique. Wei Tsang stared at Long Chen and sternly said, "It's not too late for you to admit defeat. Otherwise, you will definitely die by my hands." Wei Tsang stared at Long Chen. In his opinion, even if Longchen had the strength of the second level of the spirit martial realm, he would only have one more chance to admit defeat. He definitely wouldn't be able to defeat him. I already said that today, I will kill every member of the Wei clan I see. Longchen didn't express his opinion. It was as if he didn't put Wei Tsang in his eyes. Wei Tsang's face instantly darkened as he said, arrogant words. Since that's the case, I'll kill you even if I have to waste some effort. The instant Wei Tsang's voice fell, the black patterned long blade in his hand slashed out diagonally. The blade's shadows were like waves of roaring ocean waves. From top to bottom, they finally converged into a single blade. The imposing manner was extraordinary, and the swift and fierce feeling caused even the people below the stage to involuntarily take 2 steps back. The people below the stage immediately cried out in surprise, so strong. Wei Tsang's saber technique has already reached perfection. I'm afraid that if he practices it for another year, he will enter the realm of perfection. Even though I don't know how Longchen managed to reach the second level of the spirit martial realm, he is still a bit weaker than Wei Tsang. That's right, Wei Tsang is older than him by about 7 years. In terms of martial techniques and strength usage, Wei Tsang is far from what he can compare with, everyone was discussing spiritedly. Even Elder Zhang and the other 2 on the viewing platform couldn't help but nod their heads. Even though the 2 of them were alchemists at the second level of the spirit martial realm, Wei Tsang had a unique advantage because of his age. However, the crowd discovered another strange phenomenon. That was that Longchen actually didn't even take out his long sword as he looked at the saber shadows that filled the sky. He just stood there in a daze. Did he give up? The crowd sighed. Even though Longchen had reached the second level of the spirit martial realm, his martial techniques really couldn't compare to Wei Tsang's. He actually couldn't even dodge a single attack, However, in the next moment, Wei Tsang's expression suddenly changed. Because his long saber had actually directly pierced through Longchen's body. It was actually an illusion. Bang! Immediately after, a huge force suddenly came from his long saber. It was as if a mountain had crashed into it. The huge force caused the web between his thumb and forefinger to explode. He felt as if all his internal organs had been displaced. The long saber couldn't help but fly out of his hand. Is this where your confidence comes from? Immediately after, Wei Tsang's vision blurred. In the next moment, he saw a fist imprint on his chest. Poochie, Wei Tsang's entire body flew out like a kite. His chest felt as if it had been hit by a hammer. His face immediately turned the color of a pig's liver. Not only that, but the moment his feet were about to leave the ground, his right hand that was covered in blood was actually grabbed by Longchen. Soon after, his entire body was clamped and he was fiercely smashed into the ground of the fighting stage. Bang! 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 A series of muffled sounds resounded throughout the battlefield. On the huge fighting stage, rocks flew everywhere and the ear-piercing sound of bones breaking could be heard. Hiss! This scene caused the other 8 participating disciples around the 2 of them to disperse with a bang. Their eyes were wide open and filled with terror. This was Wei Tsang, who was at the second level of the spirit martial realm. Now, he was actually being smashed like a sandbag. This. What's going on? Wei Tsang was actually crushed. What a strong physical strength. He's really at the second level of the spirit martial realm. Oh my god, could it be that the Long family's young master had been hiding his cultivation all this time? He actually crushed Wei Tsang, who was at the same level as him. Cries of surprise continued to be heard all around. The Blood Red City's Wei clan members suddenly stood up. The Wei clan's patriarch's face changed and he shouted, "Have mercy!" The 12 big clans of the 3 big cities stared at Longchen as if they were looking at a monster. They had already placed him in the top 10 of this competition. Get lost! Longchen sneered. With a swing of his right hand, he threw Wei Tsang away. Wei Tsang flew several hundred meters and crashed into a small hill at the side of the grandstand. Rumble! the entire small mountain shook. Wei Tsang's body was like a pile of mud, limp on the ground. He couldn't be more dead. Everyone stared at Long Chen in horror. Even Elder Zheng and the other 2 people in the stands were stupefied at this scene. They were quite astonished. After a while, Elder Zheng's eyes flashed and he murmured, "Is this person really only 15 or 16 years old? I'm afraid his strength is comparable to the 4th level of the spirit martial realm. Especially his agility skill, I'm afraid it has already reached the perfection level. Moreover, the level of his agility skill is definitely not low." Interesting. Elder Zheng's voice was not low. It was clear that he was somewhat excited. The surrounding big clans heard this and they all took a deep breath. They stared at Long Chen in horror. His agility skill had already reached the perfection level. Every skill needed at least a few years of steady practice to reach the perfection level. How old was Long Chen? No wonder the Long family members had all left and he was the only one left. He wanted to reach the top 10 or even the top 3 by himself. Quick, look at Li Yuanwu's battle stage. Just when everyone was feeling numb from Long Chen's battle strength, a scream came from the other battle stage. Everyone looked over and saw that except for Li Yuanwu, the other 9 people on the stage had their throats slit. The 9 people didn't even have time to admit defeat. Li Yuanwu has already reached the top 10. There's only one person left on the stage. Chapter 37. Lu Yi, you have a pure heart. Li Yuanwu fought against 9 people and killed all of them with a single slash. He directly entered the top 10 with 9 victories. Countless people were terrified and many of the big clans in the 3 cities were gloomy. Let's see, the champion of the other battle stage has also appeared. It's Su Lishan from the Fierce Tiger City. He also won 9 battles in a row. Zhou Yishan from the Fierce Tiger City only lost to him. He also won 8 battles in a row. I'm afraid both of them can enter the top 10. Bai Ling won 9 battles in a row and killed 7. One person stands out. Along with the exclamations, the strongest cultivators of each battle stage appeared one after another. On Long Chen's battle stage, there were already 4 people lying in a pool of blood. The other 4 people admitted defeat one after another. Of the 4 people who died, 2 were from the Gu clan and 2 were from the Li clan. Of course, there was also Wei Tsang who had just died at the hands of Long Chen. The 4 of them did not even have the chance to admit defeat and were killed by Long Chen with a single punch. Only now did the various great clans realize how laughable their words were at the beginning. Long Chen did indeed have the qualifications to be arrogant, and just as he had said, all the people from the Li clan, Wei clan, and Gu clan that he encountered were all killed by him. On the first stage, Long Chen had become a dark horse. After killing Wei Tsang, he directly entered the top 10, becoming the first young disciple of the Iron Mountain City's Long clan to enter the top 10 in many years. As for the word trash from the past, when he walked down from the stage, everyone's eyes were filled with awe. A 15 or 16-year-old Ling Qi realm cultivator was considered a genius in any place. Rest for a while. 4 hours later, the top 3 battles will begin and the first place will be challenged. As the battles on each battle stage ended, the top 10 had already appeared. Of the 12 big clans, the Lin clan and the Gu clan of the Iron Mountain City were directly eliminated. None of them entered the top 10. The Wei clan, who should have entered the top 10, also did not have anyone enter the top 10 because of Long Chen. On the contrary, the Fierce Tiger City's Su family had 2 people who had entered the top 10 at the same time. This made the other big families extremely envious. The fact that 2 of their disciples had entered the top 10 was enough for the Su family to obtain a large amount of resources, which made the Su family's status rise again. Within the Iron Mountain City, the Li family and the Long family had entered the top 10. Whether they were in the top 3 or not, their overall strength would completely surpass the Gu family and the Lin family. The expressions of the Gu clan members were not good. Unknowingly, the Gu clan master had walked into the Li clan's camp. Just as Longchen was about to return to the Long family's camp, his body suddenly moved. His right hand quickly reached behind him, and then a soft and delicate hand was caught by his right shoulder. When he turned around, his expression couldn't help but change. The woman had a beautiful face and was wearing an alchemist's robe. It was Louis. "Little big brother, can you tell me how to refine those cracked pills? Why is the efficacy of that pill so much higher than the chi-gathering pill refined from ordinary green spirit grass? And why is there a crack? But little brother is about the same age as me, can he really refine such a powerful pill?" Louis's eyes were clear. Like an ignorant kitten, she leaned towards Longchen. A series of questions startled Longchen, especially when the little hand that he subconsciously grabbed was not pulled away. Instead, she turned her hand and grabbed Longchen's hand. Her face was full of expectation. Longchen smiled. He felt that the little girl was quite interesting. He casually said, "If you want to learn, I can teach you after the competition. Also, I don't accept disciples." Louis's cute face suddenly flashed with excitement. She actually hugged Longchen in her arms and cried, "Big brother, are you serious? Can you really teach me? I will definitely learn." Longchen's body suddenly tensed up. He subconsciously became vigilant, but the soft chest and the virgin fragrance of a girl made his heart tremble. Come back quickly." At this time, Sulao's face darkened and he shouted from afar. Louis was like a child who had done something wrong. She seemed to remember something and quickly let go of Longchen. She stuck out her tongue at Longchen and ran to Sulao's side. Longchen was stunned. He felt that the girl's mind was pure and she didn't seem like a mortal. Seeing the girl leave, he also turned and entered the Long family's camp. In the stands, Sulao's face was very ugly. He reprimanded the wronged Louis and said, "Remember, people's hearts are sinister. You must not casually get close to people, let alone men. Uncle Su, little big brother just promised to teach me how to refine pills and be my master. He just forgot father's teachings. But why can't I get close to men? He feels that little big brother is not a bad person." Louis asked innocently like a child, as if she didn't know anything about the matters between men and women. Elder Su was also speechless, and a doting look flashed in his eyes. He thought to himself that Louis was too infatuated with medicinal pills. Although she was a rare talent in alchemy that was hard to come by in 100 years, she knew nothing about the ways of the world. However, this pure and innocent heart of a child made him love her very much. "This boy is your master? His tone is not small. When the tournament of the 3 cities is over, I will have a good talk with him." Sulao snorted coldly. In the Li family's camp, Li Yuanwu, Li Kang, and the Gu family's patriarch gathered together. Li Kang said in a deep voice, "Brother Gu, this is a wise move. My son Li Yuanwu is 100% sure that he will win the first place in this tournament of the 3 cities. When the time comes, as long as you and I join forces, the Long family will be like chickens and dogs." Brother Li Kang's words are reasonable. It's just that Long Chen's strength makes me a little worried. He is only 15 years old now. If we let him escape, even after destroying the Long family, I am afraid that we will be on tenterhooks. The Gu family's patriarch couldn't help but worry. Longchen was really too young. At this age, he had the cultivation of the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm and could crush people of the same level. In a few years, they would not be able to resist him. His worries were not groundless. If they wanted to destroy the Long family, they had to eliminate all future troubles. At least, Longchen could not be alive. At this time, Li Yuan was sneered and said, "Longchen? He is only at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. Killing Wei Song scared you to this extent?" When the Gu family's patriarch heard Li Yuanwu's sarcastic tone, his face became a little ugly. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Li Yuanwu's right hand flash and a cold light suddenly appeared. The surrounding temperature suddenly dropped and was filled with coldness. The Gu family's patriarch subconsciously exploded. His cultivation of the peak of the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm suddenly burst out. However, in the next moment, he felt a chill in front of his chest. Soon after, he saw that his robe had been cut open. He was aghast and lost his voice, early of the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm, a king-level martial skill. Chapter 38. Chapter 38 Top 3 Death Match. A few hours passed in the blink of an eye. When the head of the Gu clan walked out of the Li clan's campsite, the competition for the top 3 positions was about to begin. Immediately after, it was the battle for the first place. Li Yuanwu killed 9 people on the same stage with a single sword strike. I'm afraid his strength is already comparable to the experts of the older generation. The first place is in the bag. First place is undoubtedly Li Yuanwu, but what about the top 3? In my opinion, Bai Ling from Blood Red City and Su Chen from Su family have a 90% chance of winning. What about the young master of the Long family? He suppressed Wei San with the strength of the 2nd level of the spirit martial realm and became the biggest dark horse of this year's great competition of the 3 cities. It's not impossible for him to fight for the top 3, no matter how strong he is. He's only at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. On the other hand, Bai Ling and Su Chen are both famous people from the great competition of the 3 cities. Now, they're both at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm or even at the peak of the spiritual martial realm. The gap between their realms is difficult to make up for. The competition hadn't even started yet, but the sound of discussion was already overwhelming. The 10 young disciples standing on the first battle platform were the strongest cultivators under the age of 25 in the 3 big cities. And they also won a lot of elixir resources for their families. Because of the strength shown in the grand competition of the 3 cities, it was enough for their families to recruit many guests in the spirit martial realm. Seeing the excitement of the crowd, Elder Zheng and the other 2 in the stands laughed. Elder Su even stepped forward. With a wave of his right hand, a long sword with purple patterns appeared on the long table in front of him. Following that, his right hand moved again and 3 golden recommendation letters appeared. On each of the letters, the words Royal Academy were written in flamboyant calligraphy. The windy chant Purple Vein Sword was refined by the Empire's #1 blacksmith, Qing Yunzi. It's a 9th grade spirit sword, and it's hard to get even with 100,000 gold. The Royal Academy is the place where the Empire invests all of its resources to nurture the nobles of the Imperial Palace. There are countless experts and countless famous teachers. Before entering the 5 great sects, it is definitely the best place to cultivate. It will definitely bring endless benefits to one's future path of cultivation. Elder Su's words made everyone's blood boil. Each of the 10 of you will receive 200 spirit charging pills. Now, there are 2 paths in front of you. Elder Su paused for a moment before continuing. The first is to fight for the top 3 positions and obtain the right to enter the Royal School's recommendation letter. The second is to give up, because the following battles will be different from the previous ones. According to the rules set by the Empire this time, only one person can survive on the next battle stage. In other words, the battle for the top 3 will be fought to the death. Su Lao's words caused the 12 families in the 3 cities to fall into chaos. The rewards for this grand competition of the 3 cities were unprecedentedly generous, but the rules were that they had to fight to the death. Only Long Chen, who was below the stage, clearly knew that this was the Blue Dragon Empire's method. After this grand competition of the 3 cities, the situation of the various cities being divided would be gone forever. Every 3 cities would have an overlord clan, and the Empire would distribute the resources. The grand competition of the 3 cities would no longer exist. I choose to give up. I give up too. And me, I give up too. After a long while, there were actually 4 people who chose to give up. These 4 people were the Fierce Tiger City's Lu clan, the Cheng clan, the Blood Red City's Zhou clan, one of the 2 brothers from the Su clan, and one from the Blood Red City's Lian clan. The 4 of them didn't look good, but they knew that there was almost no chance for them to be in the top 3. The strongest among them was only at the 2nd level of the Ling Qi layer. These 4 people know their own limits. Li Yuanwu from the Li clan will definitely be in the top 3, and he may even become the champion. Bai Ling heir from the Bai clan is also at the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer. They basically have no chance of winning. As for the other disciple from the Su clan, his strength is comparable to Bai Ling heir's. Not only those 3, the others are also old people who have participated in the previous grand competition of the 3 cities. Sun Wu from the Sun clan is 25 years old and he was in the top 10 last time. I'm afraid that his cultivation is at the peak of the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer, or even the 4th level of the Ling Qi layer. In the past 2 days, he defeated his opponents in one move. Yes, there is also Cheng Bao from the Fierce Tiger City. He is almost 25 years old and he was in the top 10 last time. I'm afraid that his cultivation is not weaker than Sun Wu's. In the blink of an eye, there were only 6 people left on the stage. Except for Li Yuanwu and Long Chen who were slightly younger, the other 4 people were already 24 or 25 years old. After a while, Su Lao frowned and asked again, "Is there anyone else who wants to withdraw?" While speaking, he looked at Long Chen. Long Chen had just defeated Wei Tsang, who was at the 2nd level of the Ling Qi layer. Although it was shocking, after all, his cultivation was only at the 2nd level of the Ling Qi layer. However, the people on the stage were at least at the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer. Countless disciples under the stage seemed to have realized that Long Chen didn't have the slightest intention of giving up. They couldn't help but talk about it. Even the 4 people who had just chosen to give up couldn't help but sneer at Long Chen. They were all at the 2nd level of the Ling Qi layer, but they knew that with their cultivation, it was impossible for them to be in the top 3. They secretly thought that Long Chen didn't know when to retreat. At this moment, if he didn't withdraw, he would definitely lose his life. At this moment, even Long Tianqing couldn't help but stand up. He looked at Long Chen from afar and said worriedly, "Chen, since you've already entered the top 10, the 200 spirit charging pills are enough. There's no need to continue fighting." Although Long Chen had exploded with unprecedented strength and even killed Long Haotian, who was at the 4th level of the Ling Qi layer, Long Haotian's cultivation was almost completely dependent on pills. He had only reached the 4th level of the Ling Qi layer after dozens of years. He couldn't be compared to the group of young people on the stage. Especially now that there was Li Yuanwu on the stage. He came from the imperial capital and was from the same sect as the eldest prince. If Long Chen encountered him, it would be difficult to determine whether he would live or die. However, at this moment, Long Chen slowly shook his head and said to Su Lao in a deep voice, "I choose to continue fighting for the top 3. Please continue the competition." Does this person really think that he is invincible after defeating Wei Tsang? Now, anyone on the stage can easily crush him. This Long Chen is too arrogant. Not to mention Li Yuanwu, even the other 4 people have all reached the peak of the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer. Their martial skills have all reached the great success stage. Even the older generation of the 4th level of the Ling Qi layer is no match for them. He's just at the 2nd level of the Ling Qi layer, he's simply courting death. After Long Chen's words, the crowd immediately went into an uproar. They only thought that he was too arrogant and didn't know when to retreat. He had failed to live up to Su Lao's expectations. Su Lao shook his head and sighed. "In the end," he said, "since you insist, then life and death are up to fate. The 6 of you will draw lots to determine your opponents. There is only one rule for this battle, and that is that only one person can survive." Following Su Lao's order, he waved his right hand and a bamboo tube fell straight on the first stage. Several people stepped forward and took a bamboo stick from the bamboo tube. Everyone looked deeply at Long Chen and even had a kind of look of anticipation. Now that there were only 6 people left, it meant that as long as they won one battle, they would directly enter the top 3. And Long Chen was obviously the easiest opponent to defeat. As long as they drew him, it was equivalent to directly entering the top 3. Chapter 39. Fighting against those with higher cultivation levels. The final battle of the top three was about to begin. Everyone from the big families stared at Long Chen. Compared to the many experts at LV3 Spiritual Martial Realm on the stage, Long Chen, who was at LV2 Spiritual Martial Realm, was the best opponent. Following Cheng Bao's loud laughter, the members of the fierce Tiger City's Cheng clan all stood up in excitement. They felt as if they were blessed by the heavens. Someone from the Cheng clan will enter the Imperial City College. Once he gets into the top three, he will be able to enter the Imperial City College. Congratulations, Cheng clan leader. The top three is already in our hands. Damn it, the Cheng clan got it. If Sun Wu got it, our Sun clan would be in the top three. Now that we have to fight against other cultivators at the third level of the spiritual martial realm, we will have a 50% chance of winning. Suddenly, the Sun clan and the other clans were jealous. They thought that such a good opportunity was taken away by the Cheng clan. Li Yuanwu against Su Chen. Bai Ling against Sun Wu. Long Chen against Cheng Bao. The six of them looked at each other and then stepped onto the stage. In the eyes of the crowd, except for Long Chen, the other five were very confident in themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't have accepted the challenge. Long Chen and Cheng Bao stepped onto the first stage. Li Yuanwu and Su Chen stepped onto the second stage. Bai Ling and Sun Wu were on the third stage. Su Chen and Sun Wu were on guard. No matter if it was Bai Ling or Li Yuanwu, both of them were very strong. They didn't dare to be careless. On the other hand, Cheng Bao, who was fighting against Long Chen, looked very relaxed. It was as if the top three were already in the bag. Long Chen, I want to thank you on behalf of the Cheng clan. If the top three battles weren't for the fact that it was a life and death battle, maybe I would have let you live. But now, it seems like I have to wrong you. Cheng Bao stared at Long Chen mockingly. His voice was full of mockery. In his opinion, Long Chen was able to reach the top three because of luck. If he had met someone in the top 10 in the previous rounds, he would have been defeated long ago. Long Chen shook his head. Cheng Bao was only at the third level of the spirit martial realm, but his tone wasn't small. Long Chen didn't want to waste his breath on him. He replied in a deep voice, "Let's start. Make your move." Those three simple words seemed to make Cheng Bao feel a great humiliation. His entire face suddenly became gloomy. I originally wanted to let you die, but now it seems that if I don't trample on you, you really think that you are invincible just because you are at the second level of the spiritual martial realm. As soon as Cheng Bao finished speaking, he didn't even unsheath the saber in his left hand. Instead, he used his right hand to mobilize all the strength in his body to attack. Behind him, 3 dragon elephant phantoms rose and fell. Even the 4th dragon elephant phantom was close to condensing. You're only at the second level of the spiritual martial realm. Even if you're 1,000 times stronger, so what? I can break your 10,000 techniques with one punch. Cheng Bao sneered. The difference in strength between the two of them was close to 2 whole levels, which was equivalent to the difference in strength of a single punch of almost 2,000 pounds. If Cheng Bao was an ordinary spiritual martial realm warrior, his strength would be close to twice that of a spiritual martial realm warrior. Just this ordinary punch alone would be impossible for a spiritual martial realm warrior to take. The people around also shook their heads. They secretly thought that Long Chen didn't know when to retreat. He dared to participate in the life and death battle of the top 3 with a spiritual martial realm warrior at the second level. It was impossible for him to take this attack alone. The best way was to rely on his agile body movement to dodge it. Unfortunately, the crowd miscalculated again. They all stared at Long Chen as if they were crazy. They saw that Long Chen didn't have the slightest intention of dodging. Moreover, like Cheng Bao, he didn't have the slightest intention of using a weapon. He just met the attack with a punch. He actually wanted to compete with Cheng Bao in terms of strength with a spiritual martial realm warrior at the second level. Bang! The 2 fists collided. There was a burst of roaring sound. The fighting stage under their feet cracked inch by inch and dust flew everywhere. Long Chen didn't even take a step back. Although Longchen was only at the second level of the spiritual martial realm, his strength was no less than that of a spiritual martial realm warrior at the fourth level. Under this punch, the crowd seemed to have seen Wei Tsang's previous punch. Now, they realized that even Cheng Bao, who was at the peak of the third level of the spiritual martial realm, took 2 steps back. This meant that although Longchen was only at the second level of the spiritual martial realm, his strength was comparable to that of a spiritual martial realm warrior at the fourth level. For a moment, the crowd was inexplicably shocked. Every level of the spiritual martial realm had a difference of 1,000 pounds of strength. The difference between levels was like a natural moat. Only a few gifted geniuses could fight above their level. Could it be that Longchen was such a person? The crowd kept exclaiming. Cheng Bao felt a burning pain in his right hand. His face suddenly turned ashen. He said in a deep voice, "I didn't think that you would hide your strength so deeply." It seems that when the purple mist sealed the mountain, you must have obtained some kind of high-level spiritual medicine that increased your strength. However, this is the end. You can't beat me just by relying on your physical strength. As Cheng Bao finished speaking, he finally pulled out his long sword. However, Longchen sneered and disappeared like a phantom. When he reappeared, he was in front of Cheng Bao. Cheng Bao's hands weren't slow. Although he was shocked by Longchen's speed, his right hand suddenly chopped out with his sword. Bang! Longchen didn't dodge his punch at all. It directly bombarded Cheng Bao's long sword. His fists danced like a river. Unexpectedly, 10 punches poured out in a row. Each punch was stronger than the previous one, and each punch was faster than the previous one. Cheng Bao felt that he didn't even have a chance to use his long sword. Every move was accurately bombarded by Longchen. The first punch made Cheng Bao retreat a few steps. The second punch made him retreat dozens of steps. The third punch, he could only helplessly put away his long sword and use all his strength to face the incoming fist shadow head-on. The crowd was in an uproar. Countless people stared at Longchen in horror. The battle was one-sided from the beginning. Longchen's fist against the sword forced Cheng Bao to retreat step by step. He didn't have the slightest strength to fight back. In the stands, Elder Zheng and the other 2 people were so shocked that they sat up. Elder Zheng even lost his voice and said, "Not only has this person's body movement reached the perfection of martial arts, but even his fist technique has also reached the perfection of martial arts. Even his fist intent has been formed. Cheng Bao can't escape from his control at all. I didn't expect Iron Mountain City to have such a young man." Just as Elder Zheng was evaluating, Cheng Bao on the stage screamed. His entire chest collapsed in an instant. Under Longchen's 8th fist shadow, he couldn't be more dead. Oh my god, the young master of the Long family actually crushed Cheng Bao, who was at the peak of level 3 spiritual martial realm, within 10 moves. This is a battle of a higher level. This is a battle of a higher level. Longchen's cultivation is enough to rank him in the top 3. The crowd kept exclaiming. In the Cheng family's camp, the faces of the people were as cold as ice. They originally thought that after encountering Longchen, Cheng Bao would definitely rank in the top 3. But now, he was killed by Longchen within 10 moves. Chapter 40. Challenging Li Yuanwu as Longchen crushed Cheng Bao, who was at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm, with his strength at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. Several families looked at the Long family with envy. This victory meant that Longchen was qualified to enter the Imperial College. This was simply a great honor. Just the fact that they were able to enter the royal school was enough to make everyone wary of the Long family. Humph, don't be too arrogant. No matter how strong he is, he's only at level 2 of the spiritual martial realm. If Cheng Bao didn't underestimate him and didn't use his blade skills, he wouldn't have lost so miserably. An elder of the Cheng family shouted. So what if you're in the top 3? The Long family and the Li family are both in Iron Mountain City. If Li Yuanwu gets first place, the Long family can't become the overlord of Iron Mountain City. How can there be two tigers in one mountain? Even the elders of the Cheng family couldn't help but mock. Qing Bao's death made them hate the Long family to the core. However, after a short moment of surprise, the people around them thought that what the two elders said was not completely unreasonable. After all, Qing Bao was defeated so miserably that he didn't use his blade skills at all. Boom! While the crowd was still in shock from Long Chen, on the other side of the fighting stage where Li Yuanwu and Su Chen were, there was a beast-like roar. Everyone looked over. They saw that Su Chen's hair was disheveled and his face was very embarrassed. The corner of his mouth was full of blood. With a beast-like roar, his cultivation suddenly surged and the shadow of a dragon elephant quickly condensed behind him. Level 4 of the spiritual martial realm. My God, Su Chen used the formation to suppress his cultivation. Now that the seal has been lifted, he actually stepped into level 4 of the spiritual martial realm. Li Yuanwu didn't use his full strength from the beginning to the end. What level of the spiritual martial realm is he? Will Su Chen be able to turn the tables after using his full strength? You're really strong, but it's all over now. For this competition, I sealed my cultivation for 10 months. Now I've directly stepped into the middle level of level 4 of the spiritual martial realm. You're definitely not my opponent, shouted Su Chen ferociously. However, Li Yuanwu, who was standing in front of him, was laughing mockingly and said, even if you have broken through to the 4th Ling Qi layer, you will still die under my sword. Li Yuanwu's words were extremely arrogant, and even the people from the other families could not help but frown. However, when they thought about how Li Yuanwu's master was a wandering elder of the 5 great sects, as well as the first prince's master, they could not say anything. This kind of status was truly incomparable to the people of the 3 cities. After Long Chen defeated Cheng Bao, he casually looked at the battle on the 2 fighting rings. On the other side, the woman named Bai Ling also crushed Sun Wu with an absolute advantage. Her slender and long hands were superb. It was really extraordinary. Li Yuanwu is stronger than Bai Ling. Even though he has only broken through to the 3rd Ling Qi layer, I'm afraid that even cultivators of the 4th Ling Qi layer would not be able to defeat him, thought Long Chen while staring at Li Yuanwu. Then, just as Long Chen had said, Li Yuanwu finally released his cultivation. 3 dragon elephant illusions rushed out and the long sword in his hand whistled like the wind. His sword was terrifyingly fast. The people around were astonished, and even the patriarchs of the big families could not help but exclaim out loud. Sweeping sword shadow. Graceful second sword shadow. Deadly third sword shadow. Li Yuanwu's speed was getting faster and faster. Obviously, he was only at the 3rd Ling Qi layer, but in just 3 sword strikes, Su Chen's head was sent flying, killing a cultivator at the 4th Ling Qi layer in 3 sword strikes. Li Yuanwu was in the limelight for a while. Even the 3 referees in the stands nodded secretly. They thought that Li Yuanwu deserved the 1st place this time. With his cultivation at the 3rd Ling Qi layer, he crushed a cultivator at the 4th Ling Qi layer. Perhaps even the older generation of the families in the 3 cities could not compete with him. The top 3 of the 3 cities tournament is Li Yuanwu from the Li family of Iron Mountain City, Long family of Iron Mountain City, Long Chen, Bai family of Blood Red City, Bai Ling Er. In the midst of countless noisy discussions, Chua Bufan, one of the 3 referees in the stands, stood up and announced loudly to the crowd. Everyone sighed. No one would have thought that 2 of the top 3 experts were from Iron Mountain City, the weakest of the 3 cities in the past. And one of them was even recognized as trash. However, after today, no one would mention the word trash again. Long Chen would also become a genius who could enter the Royal Academy. Next is the battle for the 1st place. The person who gets the 1st place will be treated as a meritorious family of the Empire. This battle will end here. If you can enter the top 3, you can compete for a place on the immortal path next year. The next battle will end here. Don't hurt your life. Then Zhua Bufan announced the rules of the last battle. As his voice fell, Bai Ling stared at Li Yuanwu and Long Chen deeply. Finally, she shook her head and said, I give up the fight for the first place. Li Yuanwu from the Li family deserves the first place. I am no match for him. Bai Ling from Blood Red City directly chose to give up the qualification to compete for the first place. This was completely unexpected. But then everyone smiled bitterly. The strength that Li Yuanwu just showed was probably only a cultivator at the 5th Ling Qi layer could fight with him. It was wise for such a person to admit defeat. After all, the resources of Blood Red City and the other 2 cities could not be compared with the imperial capital. Regardless of the realm, Li Yuanwu was invincible in terms of martial arts. Bai Ling turned around and was about to walk down the stage. When she passed by Longchen, she paused and said kindly, "You can't defeat Li Yuanwu. You should leave with me as soon as possible." After speaking, the woman did not stop at all. She walked down the stage and entered the Bai family's camp. Longchen could tell that the woman's words were not sarcastic, but a kind reminder. He could not help but look at her a few more times in his heart. However, he shook his head. Without waiting for Longchen to speak, Long Tianqing stood up again and said to Longchen from afar, "Chen, the top 3 is enough. You can enter the Imperial Academy, and your future is limitless. As for the treatment of the meritorious family, my Long family does not need it." Many disciples of the Long family also stared at Longchen. Although they had great expectations for Longchen, at this moment, they did not want Longchen to fight with Li Yuanwu. "Next, I announce that the first place is Li." As Long Tianqing's voice fell, Alchemist Su nodded in agreement. He directly announced the final result. "I don't agree. I want to challenge Li Yuanwu." However, before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Longchen. Longchen took a step forward and walked in front of Li Yuanwu. He looked at him indifferently, and a disdainful aura unconsciously spread out. "You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.